as an ambassador for the organization. And so I told you in the beginning that we will be touching everywhere, right? I wasn't joking. I know exactly what we are working on. My team are fantastic. I'm always in front, but the people behind me, you have no idea. And so, Max, if you're ready, let's bring the greetings notes from the Made by Dyslexia founder, Kate.
Dyslexia. We're a global charity and our... Hi, I'm Kate Griggs from Made by Dyslexia. We're a global charity and our mission is to help the world to understand the brilliance of dyslexic thinking and to empower it. Hi, I'm Kate Griggs from Made by Dyslexia. We're a global charity and our mission is to help the world to understand the brilliance of dyslexic thinking and to empower it in every home, every school and every workplace. Last year, dyslexic thinking was officially added as a skill on LinkedIn, and it was also added as a noun to the dictionary. Dyslexic thinking aligns with the World Economic Forum's most sought after skills. So it's vital that every school understands how to recognise and support dyslexic learners. We are really excited to be partnering with the Africa Dyslexia Organisation to help empower dyslexic thinking in Africa. We look forward to telling you lots more in the new year, but before then you can take our free training on Microsoft Learn, which shows every teacher and every parent how to empower dyslexic thinking in school. Or you can take our workplace training, Empowering Dyslexic Thinking at Work, on LinkedIn Learning. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today. Have a great Dyslexia Education Stakeholders Forum. And thank you for all the amazing work you're doing to support dyslexic learners in Africa. I look forward to watching you all on LinkedIn and working with you next year. Thank you.
We are going to transform Ghana. We are going to transform Africa and the world at large. Because when our kids comes out with solutions and different creative idea, it does not just stop in Ghana, but it transforms the whole world. And so join us on the journey. Make your teachers available. Make your organization employees available so that you take the training on dyslexia and their workplace training as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosalind. So, just so you're aware, this is not an experiment, all right? Rosalind and the Africa Dyslexia Organization have quite a lot of experience in training teachers. In fact, Rosalind, what was the very precise number you said the other day? 3,771 educators and teachers. Yes, clap. It hasn't been easy. Yeah. 3,771 teachers and educators and those passionate about supporting dyslexic people have been trained through the Africa Dyslexia Organization's efforts so far. This is, of course, an amazing new initiative and opportunity to provide wider knowledge and, to give that to even more people. But this is not an experiment, so don't feel as though this is the first time and someone's asking you to be the first person. Right, so next we have our second panel. And the topic for this panel is assessment, intervention, and parenting. As Kwame did so graciously earlier, he read every single profile on our behalf. And then he realized I had read no profiles. So he managed to wangle and dangle that I am now reading the profiles. I hope are you excited to hear me read these profiles? Good, because I'm the dyslexic one. So just hold your seats. Right. So, like I said, we are on to the panel about assessment, intervention, and parenting. So, for this panel, I'm going to say their names, but I'm going to introduce them as I read out their profiles. We will have Dorcas Abloh, the director of Azure Venture. We will have Godwin Adu Affle, he's a lecturer, memory trainer, and author. We will have Joy Thomas, who's the executive director for Dyslexia Ghana. Natalie Orkin Edmund, who is training and psychologist and family therapist at Lekma Hospital. And it will be moderated by the amazing and gorgeous Amma Asamoah, who is also dyslexic and is the co-founder of Patron. All right, so let me tell you a bit about this panel, some context. Parents, as we've discussed earlier, and I think we're fully aware, play a vital role in supporting dyslexic students by providing emotional support, advocating for appropriate resources, and fostering a positive attitude towards learning. Timely assessments are crucial to identifying dyslexia early, allowing for tailored interventions and support that can significantly improve academic outcomes. Collective efforts can make a significant difference by pooling in resources, sharing expertise, and fostering a sense of community. When individuals, organizations, and communities unite, like we have done today, towards a common goal, we can create positive change, tackle complex issues more effectively, and amplify our impact for the betterment of society as a whole. And that is what this panel specifically is about. So, first off, I will introduce our moderator, the gorgeous Miss Amma Asamoah. So Amma is a passionate entrepreneur. Passionate, in fact, passionate entrepreneur. You know, passionate. She's so passionate, guys. An advocate for diversity and inclusion. She has overcome her own challenges, including dyslexia, to pursue her dreams and create opportunities for others. Amma is the founder of Shifting Perspectives and Patron, two thriving companies that prioritize empowering individuals from marginalized backgrounds. Her journey is an inspiring testament to resilience and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to shine. Please clap for Amma. Let's welcome Amma to the stage. Are we clapping or are we cold? I really felt the vim come from this side. Yes, I saw you too, darling. I saw you too. Right. Next up, Dorcas Foley Abloh, the CEO of Azure Ventures, overseeing the distribution of Royal Atlantic tuna, is a multifaceted individual with diverse talents and a heart for community service. Beyond her corporate role, Dorcas is a seasoned singer. Yeah, spoiled. And child coach. So do you coach them while you sing? Is it like singing coaching? Is it like in Frozen? No? Okay. Bringing over a decade of expertise in training and nurturing children aged 4 to 12 within her community. As a proud mother of a dyslexic child, Dorcas finds fulfillment in sharing her experiences and insights. Through her journey, she seeks to offer support and guidance to fellow parents navigating similar challenges. Dorcas's commitment to both her professional endeavors and her advocacy for parents of dyslexic children reflects on her dedication to making a positive impact in both the business and personal spheres of her life. Can we please clap for Dorcas? A second. Can we please clap for Dorcas? Yes. Right. Next up, because Charles earlier up, the UN resident coordinator, he does not like these things he calls manels, which is panels that only have men. And so, in order to make sure we don't end up with a wannel, you get it, right? we should bring a man up into the space. So we have Godwin Adu Aful, professionally known as God Aful, is a versatile and sought after professional with a wealth of experience in various domains. He is a lecturer at KNUST, a shrewd memory trainer, and a motivational speaker. Additionally, he's also a project management consultant and a successful entrepreneur. Godwin is driven by a strong passion for empowering young individuals and discovering and harnessing their innate talents and abilities. Under his mentorship and support, many young individuals have emerged as influential agents of positive transformation and change. Gord Affel is a passionate researcher in the area of educational neuroscience. He upholds the philosophy that there is no such thing as a bad brain, since the human brain possesses remarkable plasticity. My dyslexia is showing plasticity right now. Godwin, you have long words in your bio. Right? And and the human brain can adapt and grow through learning and training. He firmly believes in the power of training the mind and provides science-based techniques that enhance cognitive abilities. Gord Affel is also an author, and his debut book, 37 Secrets to Learning, is helping many schools in Ghana and providing guidance to students worldwide on effective learning methods. He has conducted sessions on TV and radio, as well as in various schools, equipping students with learning strategies and tips for passing exams. Godwin, please rise to the stage. Let's clap for Godwin. Thank you, sir. Next up, we can continue back with our semi-wano. We have Joy Thomas. Joy is the founder and director of Dyslexia Ghana and the Neurodiversity International Center, and boasts a diverse academic background with a master's in psychology and a BSc in social work. As the sole as the sole Davis facilitator in Ghana and West Africa, she brings specialized expertise to her work. A member of the British Dyslexia Organization and the British Psychological Society, she actively connects with international networks, offering face-to-face and online services for both adults and children. Joy focuses on assessing and supporting individuals with dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and dysgraphia. Her over 20-year commitment significantly contributes to neurodiversity awareness and supports the region that we are in. Thank you very much, Joy. Joy, please come up to the stage. It's this side. You are the offenders. Let's clap for Joy, everybody. Right. And then last but by absolutely zero means least, Natalie. So Natalie Orkin Edmond. Natalie came to the field of psychology and family therapy at a later stage in her life, in her professional life, after having worked in the field of international development, project, and human resource management. As the mother of two neurodiverse children, she was naturally pulled into this very fascinating world of children with neurodevelopmental disorders, such as dyslexia. She discovered alongside her children the struggle, the pain, and the complexity of growing up as a neurodiverse child in a world that caters primarily for neurotypical people. She experienced firsthand how the education system can destroy the potential and bright future of neurodiverse children, and how the lack of understanding of neurodiversity can negatively affect families. Before I continue, I must say bless you. Someone sneezed, bless you. Please always remain blessed by us, okay? Right. As a result, Natalie saw it as a calling to go back to school and to reorient her professional career so as to support not only her children, but also other children and families struggling to come to terms with not fitting in with the norms of society. Natalie holds an MSc in Applied Psychology from Robert Gordon University in Scotland and is currently training to become a family therapist. She hopes to contribute to changing the narrative, which focuses more on the impairments of neurodiverse children and adults towards a more inclusive and supportive narrative that celebrates and recognizes their strengths and abilities. Natalie, please rise. Can we please clap for Natalie? Oh, I see. That was a very high clap. Oh. Now, if I could please get some assistance to move the podium.
Thank you,
Oh,
Tanisha.
oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
thank you. You see, she's gorgeous. I told you she was gorgeous. Very passionate. Now, as the podium is being moved, I would like to tell these cars. One is a Isuzu, so I see the Kia people have behaved. We are now in Isuzu lands. GN 78221. Please just sneak out very subtly and move the vehicle. And then GC 416520. If you could also similarly sneak out. Now, because Kwame is not here, I cannot confirm if Jesus or anyone else is there. But please, the car should not be, okay? Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Do we have enough mics? Does everyone have access to a mic? There's one here. Thank you. There you go. I want to make sure everyone's prepared. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy to be with you guys. Okay, before we get started, how many educators are in the room? Can we just, by show of hands? Educators, educators, yes, wave them proudly. Hey, guys. Okay, how many parents are in the room? Parents, hey, parents, thank you for coming. So when Rosalind was coordinating with me about the panel I was going to moderate, I thought to myself, I should be on the panel with my fellow dyslexics because we vibe. Yes, I'm dyslexic. However, when I got into the nitty gritty of the panel, I realized this was the perfect panel for me to be on because it was actually an educator that set me on my journey to getting my assessment and basically to allow me to live the life that I'm currently living. Rosalind mentioned in her opening speech that without diagnosis, some of us can be missed. We can be left out destitute on the street. For me, that wasn't my story. I don't think I would have been on the street, but I will say I would never reach my full potential had I not been assessed. And I was assessed as an adult. So I am very happy to be here with everyone because these are the gatekeepers in terms of assessments, our parents and our educators. So welcome, guys. So we've done all the bio readings. Thanks to Nisha, she did that. So I just want to get us into the flow of this. So we heard from our first panel from our dyslexia in terms of their superpowers and what makes them resilient in life and some of their challenges. So now I want to make it very practical. I want to speak directly to the educators in the room, and I want to speak directly to the parents in the room. So I'm going to kick it off to you, Dorcas. We're going to start with you. Your 13-year-old daughter played for us earlier this morning. If everyone was here earlier, please wait for us. Please clap for her. 13-year-old playing the piano. And that is all you. So my first question for you is when did the word dyslexia enter your orbit? And what was the thing that kicked you into action to advocate for your child?
So she's 13 years. We got to know of her condition at age 9. Age 9. Before then, uh, we were expecting a brilliant child, a girl who should be able to read and write. She should be able to, express herself among her peers. But unfortunately, she wasn't like that. So she comes home with homework and she's not able to do it. Her homework that she's written are made up of lots of mistakes. So we became worried. Like, what is wrong with this girl? we became, we're hard on her, we're shouting on her, beating her, expecting her to pick up because his daddy will say, we are not from a, a home that's a Mwabong, excuse me to say that. So we're expecting her to be brilliant. There are some basic things that we were expecting her to know. That was from grade one, stage one. When she got to stage four, her teacher was like, no, this is not normal. Let's take her to either the hospital or wherever for an assessment. So when he said that, we didn't also relax. We tried our best and then located a hospital for the assessments. So we got there and she was assessed. I think we went about 4 or 5 times. After the assessment, I got to know of dyslexia. Had it not been that, I wouldn't have known anything about dyslexia. So after hearing that, I had to read about it, do a lot of research to know what dyslexia is, how to handle these dyslexics. Thank you.
Oh, I think my mic is dying. Yes. So I did want to follow up. What made you go into action mode? So you hear that the word dyslexia, you didn't just stop there though. What made you go into action mode?
Okay, so after reading about it, I realized this girl, even though she can't read or write, there are other things that she does perfectly. She's able to draw, she can paint, she likes sewing, she likes to play with the piano. So we decided to, no, what can we do to help this girl? After we got to know that it's not her fault, she wasn't, we can't blame her if she can't read or write. After we got to know, we focused more on her strength and decided to help her. So we got her lots of materials for painting, a lot of how do you call it, canvas. We got her someone to help her with the piano. We didn't relax. We tried to work on her strength, what she's able to do better. And then trust me, now her reading and writing has improved. We stopped shouting at her. We showed her so much love. And by God's grace, her reading has improved. Even her handwriting has changed. Because at first she couldn't write. When she writes, you won't be able to read. She would spell a word correct at the first page, the next page, the same word, she would spell it wrong. So we showed her so much love. We made her understand that it's not her fault, but that also doesn't mean she should relax. She also had to help us to help her. So together we were able to raise her, and by God's grace, she's better than before.
Thank you. I want to jump over to Natalie, our next parent advocate. So Natalie, what I want to say is thank you for filling the gap. You saw a gap that existed, and rather than wait on someone else to help, you decided to help yourself. And I want you to talk a little more about that because I want you to talk about how parents can advocate for their children in a practical way and your journey to actually advocating for your kids.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, thank you for the question. Um, hmm. I even have my handkerchief in case I have tears coming because it's been a very emotional journey. Um, so, as you heard in the bio, I'm a mother of two dyslexic children, and um, when I found out, I told myself, I mean, it begs the question, what is the universe trying to tell me? You know, having two children who are neurodiverse, who have challenges at school, um, and I have a boy and a girl, and my son is the eldest, and it's with him I started that journey, and I didn't know anything as well about dyslexia or neurodiversity or other learning challenges. And as my son was growing up, so in his 2, 3, as mothers, we are very mindful of the milestones. They have the developmental milestones that they have to be reaching at each stage. And I could see there were discrepancies or there were gaps when he was 6 months old, when he was a year old, when he was 18 months old. He was not reaching those milestones. Um, so I was I started paying attention to that. And around you, you always have people telling you, oh, it doesn't matter. Every child grows at their own pace. Let him be. He's a boy. He will eventually reach those milestones or be able to to achieve what you're expecting from him. But then what is very important, what I want parents to to take into account is to follow their intuition, because as parents, you know your children best. You are with them 24/7. Um, you see how they're growing up, and when you feel that something is not right, follow your intuition. And I could see my son when he started speaking, when we started communicating with him. um, I would talk to him, and then I always tell that story. It's as if I could see through his eyes. I could see the different pathways in the brain, and I could see that the information I was delivering to him was going through different channels, but it wasn't getting to where it was supposed to get. And he would say, okay. And then an hour later, he would come back, ask the same question. And then it would confirm the fact that, yes, that information I had given to him was not reaching where it was supposed to get to. So and then when he was in daycare, when he was in kindergarten, another red flag is when the teachers start calling you very often. Your son is a bit disruptive in class, your son is a bit slow. I was being called regularly. So that's also another indication that there might be something something not fitting. I don't like to use the words wrong or, because it's not wrong, it's different. So then when he started primary school, reading, that was really a very, how do I put it, uh, traumatic experience, because I love reading. I read very easily, my husband as well. And this is my son. The words were just not making sense for him, and he took. So normally they would and also what I forgot to mention. So I am bilingual. I'm French and English, and so my children too brought up bilingual, French and English. So that was also another explanation that was being given, that because he's learning in 2 different languages, it takes longer for him to be able to assimilate language. But then it took stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Reading and writing was still very problematic.
So, Natalie, I just want us to catch us up where you are. So, you're getting calls from school. Your child has started school. What age did you get the diagnosis? Because now we're at grade
Yeah.
1, grade 2. You're getting calls, but
Yeah.
you're noticing things now.
Yes.
So,
yes.
when does the diagnosis actually come?
So the diagnosis, it actually came around the age of 7.
Okay.
Around the age of 7. But after doing other assessments, but it took a while to really pinpoint what my son had. And actually, as they mentioned earlier on, when you have dyslexia, the likelihood of you having other disabilities or other neurodevelopmental disorders is quite high. 40%, I think, of dyslexic people have concurrent disabilities. So my son is a very explosive combination of other disabilities. So that impacted also his behavior, his learning abilities, and everything. So yeah, the 7-8 is when we really
7-8.
kind
Okay.
of put the
number on
finger
it.
on what was really going on.
Got you.
Yeah.
So I have to interrupt us for a quick PSA. There are 3 cars blocking 1 car in. So I'm going to read out the cars. First car, Toyota Corolla, GW9219. First car. Next one is another Toyota Corolla, GV1833014. The next car is a VW Passat. Okay, Passat is GC 416520. So please, these 3 cars, you are blocking 1 person in. If you guys can please assist. But back to my lovely panel. Okay, so we talked to the parents. Your diagnosis was at age 9. And your diagnosis was at age 7. I just want everyone to be following along. I want to come to our educators now. So our educators, Godwin, it is a pleasure to share a platform with you again. I love your concept about the concept that the brain is elastic. It expands, it contracts, is just about how we utilize it. So you are a memory trainer. For the audience, this might be the first time that they've come across the word memory trainer. Can you please just give us a comprehensive overview of what is a memory trainer and how it plays an important role in the life of a parent?
All right. Thank you very much. When you were mentioning the names, the card numbers, I was just praying my wouldn't come in because I know I blocked somebody. I was thinking I could just go and free up that space. All right. So thank you very much. Good to meet you again. We share the same platform on Joy Prime. All right. Good. Memory training. Usually, when you go like a memory trainer, people go like memory trainer. So can you really train the mind? It's a new area basically. But yes, you can train the mind. Why? Because the brain is plastic, which means it's flexible. Uh, Back in the day, neuroscientists thought when you get to 25, your brain doesn't grow again. Your brain can't change again. You can't improve again. Now they are telling us your brain can always improve. So when I got this message, I started looking into that, and decided to try, read some techniques and try them on some students. And it started working, So for parents, I want to say that if you have a child that is struggling, there's good news. The brain can always improve, and in neuroscience, we call it neuroplasticity. So don't give up on your kids. They can always do better. It boils down to desire, So we were talking the other time, and I said 2 things. You can decide to manage it or decide to come out of it. There are different forms of dyslexia, I talked about this one on TV. We've got the primary dyslexia. For primary, it's more genetic, so chances are that you live with it forever. We have secondary dyslexia, usually during pregnancy, there might be issues with brain development. If you are lucky, you could grow out of it. It could diminish. Then we have trauma dyslexia. You might have a problem, injury, and you could basically have it. But the good news is, no matter what type of dyslexia you have, you can always improve it. So when it comes to reading and writing, and we have various forms. Some people can't read, some people can't write. So for reading, we say dyslexia, basically. For writing, we say dysgraphia. For maths, we use dyscalculia. But the thing is, whether it's dyscalculia, dysgraphia, whatever, you can still improve. You know, this brain that we have has got 100 billion neurons, which suggests, and everything we are observing is just the network connecting. And you've got 100 billion neurons. So if there's a portion that is damaged or has a problem, you still have more, you know. So for me, if you are desirous, if you want to read, and like my friend here, Johnny, he can do it. I know many people, they were desirous, they wanted to read, they wanted to write. And like you said, your child is writing again. So every mind can learn. And I like your phrase. Every child can learn. You know, so there's good news for everybody. There are things we can do. Maybe later we'll talk about it. Things you could do to improve the mind, things you could do to improve your state. You know, if you find it difficult to write, find it difficult to spell, there are things you do. I have a book on, not basically on dyslexia, but it's a book, general book on how to learn, showing people how to learn. On TV, I always say this: nobody's dumb. And when I say this, many people find it hard to ponder. Hey, nobody's dumb. But I knew somebody was really dumb in class. I said, nobody's dumb. You know, and I believe in this one strongly, that we can all improve. And this is consistent with the Bible phrase that says, every student who receives perfect training will be like the teacher. So the problem, the gap here is perfect training. So if I have a condition and I receive the perfect training, I will improve. You know, so in a classroom, if you could give them the perfect training, which has actually started in many areas, you know, if you go to the US, UK, you are doing it. Ghana, thanks to Rosalind, we want to basically raise more awareness, talk about it more. If you give them perfect training, they will definitely improve. So parents, if you can give our kids perfect training, motivate them, not give up on them, you know, and push them. But don't forget, they also have their strength.
Godwin, relax. The pen is not over yet. It's not over yet. We have so much more to talk about. So don't conclude us, please.
Right.
So, Madam Joy, I have been looking forward to speaking with you because thank you so much for the work that you're doing in Ghana. It was, like I said, it was a assessment. Actually going through the assessment that changed my life. I'm the first person in my family to ever get assessed. But when I look back, I don't know if Sarah's still in the room. Sarah was on our first panel with our dyslexia bunch, and she talked about her mom having dyslexia, her dad having dyslexia, and her brother having dyslexia. And I sat there and thought, what freedom you have in that, knowing exactly what you have and having people that are advocating for you. So assessment is the route that takes you to that freedom. So thank you for the work that you're doing. So what I want to do is I want to hand it over to you so you can share what Dyslexia Ghana is and what assessment actually does. Is it green?
Hello? Hello?
We hear you.
Oh dear. I better hold it a bit further now. That was scary. First, before I answer your question, I'm also dyslexic, so I think we're going to have a lot
We're
of
in
fun.
great company.
Before I answer your question, I just want to say I'm so excited and so happy to be here today. That exactly 10 years ago, 2013, exactly in this room, we held our first dyslexia awareness in this room.
That definitely
Honestly.
deserves a round of applause.
And I said Rosalind is my daughter, adopted daughter. I really am really grateful and very happy that you carrying the torch and you carrying that. It makes me feel like 23 years work has not gone astray. And that since 2000, I thought I was the only dyslexic in Ghana, by the way. But so to see so many people who are also dyslexic is really heartwarming. And I'm sure most people felt at the time that they also were the only dyslexics. So this is a conversation we need to have, and this is an awareness we need to promote. So I'm glad that somebody else has got the torch and is flying the flag. So thank you very much, Rosalie, for this opportunity to.
Yeah, we can clap for that.
Thank you. So assessment. Yes. Assessment, to me, a diagnostic assessment is the only way you can say somebody is dyslexic. You can have the screening, which would, I'll say, I won't call it, well, it's also an assessment in a way, but it's not exactly, sorry. Being dyslexic, I need to, from time to time, look at my nose just in case.
Madam Joy, please don't apologize. If you need to read through your notes, take your time and read through your notes. You are in safe company.
Sorry, just to get the buzzwords, because sometimes, the words are in there, but it's floating and it's not. So screening is a process for evaluating, like you get evaluated, but it's a yes or no kind of answer. But when you get the diagnostic assessment, which then actually goes a bit deeper and you put through all sorts of tests and your background is taken into consideration and your education a foundation is taken into consideration, then you could be assessed and said, yes, you got dyslexia. So it's not just as straightforward to say, oh, I can't read and write and I can't spell. It doesn't always mean we have to look at a different, you can't just look at that side of it and say you are dyslexic. We have to look at a broader picture, take your background into consideration, how much schooling you've had, how much, education, foundation as well. What was your nursery like? Did you crawl early? Medical interventions that's gone through. There's a whole lot of things that we need to take into consideration before one can be said that you got dyslexia. And there is, like how we all know that ruler is ruler in everywhere in the world. The measurement is the same everywhere in the world. It's the same thing with also dyslexia assessment and report to say that the DSM-5 has also like a measuring stick, which says and gives us the guidelines to say that you got dyslexia. So it's not just simple, but it's quite a freedom when you've been assessed and you've been told that you're not stupid, you're not lazy, and that what you are going through is something known as dyslexia. So without the assessment, you can't really get the interventions, you can't really get the support that you need. And if you go exams and things come in, especially when you're a bit older, it gives you also the freedom to be given like maybe extra time. I know Ghana is still on the verge of that. I mean, it's happening, but it's not fully fleshed yet. So we're hoping that with programs like this and conversations like this, it will get better for Ghana as well. Because I'm also, I can only use me to explain what I'm going to say now. Because when I was assessed, I was actually
What age were you assessed?
I'm coming to actually, I won't say I was assessed then. I was 9 in Rich School in Kumasi, where an American teacher said to my mother that, oh, though I was very good at maths, I wasn't good at reading and writing and spelling. I remember the word half. Oh gosh, I could spell half now, but honestly, it wasn't easy. And my mother was told that there's something known as word blindness. Then it wasn't called dyslexia, it was called word blindness. And my mother said, no, she's not blind. She could see. So the teacher said, yes, she could see, but she's blind to words. And she said, well, okay. So in comes extra tuition. Every day, teachers, extra classes, extra this, extra that. And unless you didn't hear of another school which is doing really well, you are going there. Because this blindness needs to go away. We're not having this blindness. Anyway, luckily, I was then sent over to Europe, to England, and it was then that I was actually properly diagnosed properly to say, yes, she is dyslexic. And then all the support was started to put in. But yes, knowing that you're dyslexic and going around saying you're word blind and not no other support being put in. But the teachers that were teaching me also didn't know what they were dealing with. So even though I was getting the extra classes, I wasn't moving forward. So with the assessment comes a report. And in the report, it will give the recommendations of what sort of classes and what sort of support you need and what sort of learning styles you are and how the teachers should work with you. Again, having said that, I've written so many reports in Ghana, and sometimes my heart bleeds, and I'm going, what is the report for? What is the assessment for?
Yeah.
Because even though you've written it, sometimes gone to visit the schools, talk to them, the child is still not being supported the right way.
Madam Joy, I want to interject because I really want us to talk about assessment. What I want to do, I want to demystify, because we keep saying assessment, assessment. I want to demystify it and actually talk about the practicals. So for me, I can only use myself as a personal example. When I was assessed, it was a two-part process.
Yeah.
I first went in and spoke with someone who just confirmed, like, yeah, there's some dyslexia there. Let's actually get you tested. I went in for a test. My test was an hour and a half where I worked with an assessor, and we just did. You can explain it better in terms of what kind of tests we go through, but I want to demystify this process of what the assessment looks like. It's not as scary as it's sounding. So I want us to talk about the assessments from the parent's perspective and from what actually goes on when you're in the room. So like I said, I had a two-step process. The first one was about 45 minutes. The next one that I did was an hour and a half. Can you talk us through what the actual assessment is, how many steps there are to it, and just roughly how long is it?
Okay, start off. It takes sometimes from, depending on a child, it could take anything from, say, an hour to 3 hours. And it's quite detailed. You get tested in, it's not a test where you pass or fail. It's to assess what you are good at, in say in your writing, in your reading, and in your spelling, and also how cognitively your brain is working. So that is all the different tests that we have to do.
Can we review those categories again? So what are the categories that we go through when you're being assessed?
Okay, then I need to look.
Yes, please pull up the
Please,
iPad.
please.
I want to get very technical for the audience so they understand.
Okay.
And you know what to ask
So-
for. So if somebody tells you, oh, we don't do that, maybe you can ask, hey, can you give them a cognitive assessment? That's why I want to be clear on what vocabulary do we use when we're asking in the realm of assessment. So
Okay.
please.
Yeah, to start off with, we normally, for a child to be assessed in the diagnostic assessment, the child has to be at least 7 years old. And you'll be saying, why? We need to know. It doesn't mean that before that, a child can't be screened and be supported and interventions put in place. But for this particular assessment, which is the diagnostic assessment, because there's quite a lot of reading and writing involved in a full diagnostic assessment, and as some children tend to also read later than others, it will be inappropriate to put them through this lengthy process. So that hence that's why we go for 7, because by that time they've gone through the basic, reading and writing and stuff. So they'll be able to you'll be able to assess them and actually find out if there's definitely something wrong. So the assessment will provide a clear picture of someone's cognitive profile and their strengths and weaknesses. This will help to ensure that any support put in place is and effective as possible. So you're asking me, so I'll come to what is involved in. So I'm going through the preparation for parents before you go to. So the child, for a child to be assessed, the child normally must have had like an eye test or a sight test, maybe in a year or two.
You said a blind test?
Eye,
eye test.
eye test.
Eye test.
Eye
Okay.
or sight.
Okay.
Okay. Test within like in the last 12 months. And because I mean, what's the point of assessing the child? And maybe it's to do with the eyes and you're missing something out. And then some, and also hearing, to also further hearing test that or a hearing check. That will be the basic before the assessment. It is important for the child also to know what they are going to see or what they are going to do, and how that they are going to see somebody who is interested in the way they learn and to help them put things in place. So you tell that to your child. So again, also when the child is also coming for the assessment, they should bring like a report or their schoolwork or something to also show the assessor
Okay.
what they've been doing. And sometimes, if there's also been other assessments that's been done, it will also be helpful to the assessor to know, so you don't repeat things that has been done before. And that also doesn't give a clear, because if the child has done that test before and you also do it again, you might get the wrong readings. Yeah. Then it is also so yeah, so we don't repeat the test again. All right. So parents, when you are coming also, you make sure that you bring something to occupy yourself, because as I said, it takes like 2 to 3 hours or between an hour, what do you call, so, and then also bring refreshments. Make sure and make sure the child is not hungry. The child has eaten and
That's
the child
great.
is out. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, do you want me to carry on? Yeah.
Okay, let's pause there because I want to go to Godwin. When we talk about assessment, how do you assess um, where somebody is in their memory when they come to you?
Yes, I think she mentioned many of the key areas. We, like she said, the best way is for you to get it from a clinical psychologist. So it has to be diagnosed.
Can I interrupt? What we're talking about, like early beginnings. What if you don't have access to a clinical
Yeah. So if you
psychologist?
don't have access in school, what they could do, or if it were to come to me, it has to do with something called phonological skills. So we call something phone names. Phone names. If you have a word, the smallest part of the speech, so like cat, you break it down into syllables. Cat. So when it comes to those phone names, sometimes you may find it difficult to break them. And again, it's about the sound and the symbol. So you need to go through them with the vowels, the consonant, let them sound it out. And when you do that, you know the specific problem. Some people might find it difficult to basically do the bo sound or do the po sound. Some people might mistake both for po. So if something like bad, when they see bad, they might say bad. So you go through all these ones to understand where the problem is. Like I said, we have various forms. Dyslexia expresses itself in various forms. So you need to understand what the problem is so you can basically address it. So
Okay, so I want to clarify where you come in the process. You come in after people have seen Madam Joy and they have the formal assessment,
yes.
correct? Okay, so after they have the assessment, where do you pick up from there? And what does that work look like?
It's not easy. I think I remember I was working with a child in London. She was I would say dysgraphic, had problems with spelling. Very good in maths, very good in science, but when it comes to spelling, he had a problem. So when I identified that, they didn't do the assessment, but I had to walk him through these ones. So we had to spell more. So that was his problem. So we had to do more, the spelling. Then I was teaching him how to break it into the phone names, syllabus, and again, motivation. There was a motivation for him. When you motivate people, it changes the brain. Okay, so when you're motivated, your brain is different. So when they get the motivation, then they know everything is possible. And when that happens, the brain changes and things become easy for them. There was a word he couldn't spell, and I said, if you could get this, I'll get you Nando's.
You'll get you what?
Nando's.
The chicken place?
Yes, I'll get you Nando's. So when I said this, he sat up. He looked at the word. I said, you can do this. Find a way to spell this word. I gave him 5 minutes. He found a way. What changed? There was motivation. So when we could motivate people, they will always find a way. Because I told you the brain is plastic. The brain is powerful. Once there's something, I don't want to be too technical, something called prefrontal cortex. It's here. It sits above your eye. When you give yourself a reason to do something, it switches on. And it is a CEO, we call it the CEO of the brain, the executive of the brain. When it gets the message, it will connect everything that is important to make it happen. So when we do these ones, we try to motivate them, then we take our time to walk them through this. We use other methods, the multisensory approach. So I was teaching another guy how to memorize the periodic table. He was dyslexic as well. And I used this simple story, like a song. Let's call it a story. Imagine you going to Atomic House, okay? Then they've given you 25 minutes to drive 40 cars before you go to a match. And in that match, there's a friend called Nana from Ghana who will play number 11. But before you do that, take your 30 zinc tablet. So it's like a story. He knows he has got 25 minutes to drive 40 cars. This is tied to the periodic table, 25 minutes, manganese. 40 cars, calcium. When this one sinks in, it becomes difficult to forget it. So we bring in these multisensory approaches. We have different types of learners, like I said the other time on TV. Some of them might be kinesthetic learners. They love to touch. Some of them might be auditory. They love to hear more. Some of them might be visual. When they see, they can get it. So if you could blend it, it makes it easy for everybody. So we bring in all these ones, and if you could do that, it becomes easy for them to recall. So these are some of the things that we do.
Okay, thank you. Because I love that you broke down the different aspects of learning, Madam Joy. I think we have one enough for each person. Is that one working?
Which one's not working?
It's not working? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, can I continue with my one?
I wanted to get to the parents real quick, just in terms of what actually helps at home. So I do want to circle back to the actual process of assessment. I want everyone to walk out with the practical behind the scenes of what goes
All
on.
right, okay.
So I was going to come to Dorcas. So I want to know what techniques. So Godwin talked about the different approaches, right? Are you tactile? Are you visual? What techniques do you find that work at home for your daughter the best?
I think it's visual. If she sees the thing, she watches the thing, and you ask her to do the same thing, she wouldn't watch it again. She would do the thing simple. So for her, when she sees the thing, it helps her a lot. But if you say it doesn't help her.
Perfect.
So that's what we
Helps
use
her.
at home.
And Natalie, what helps your children at home?
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry. Before I answer that question, I just wanted to add on the assessment bit. So as Madam Joy was saying, and Godwin, so you test the literacy, numeracy, cognitive processing. But what those assessments also help to identify is the child's underlying abilities. And it's not only the negatives, but the positives. And that was very helpful for us. So my children both in terms, and so you'd distinguish between verbal abilities and non-verbal abilities. And very often children with dyslexia are very weak in verbal abilities, but extremely good in non-verbal abilities. And that's the case for my children. My son, I remember very well, and the person who assessed him, she'll be on the education panel, Sonia. At the end of the assessment, she told me, if I were to get lost in the forest or in the Amazon forest or something, I would want your son to be with me because he would be able to get us out of where we are.
Wow.
And that stuck with me so much. And it's true. Sometimes I get lost in the car with my son at the back when he was even younger. He would get us out of where we were, you know. So they're very good in identifying colors, patterns, shapes, and everything. So in the assessment, that is very important. It helps you see where your child is good, and you can direct and push your child in those areas where he or she is good. To your question about what works at home, so yes, both my children are visual and kinesthetic. Um, my son, I remember as a child, he needed to touch everything, you know. And when we are parents and you have children who are young, you're a bit worried about them touching everything, especially things that can break. But he always needed to touch. He always needed to feel, because that was the way he would be able to assimilate whatever he was seeing or being explained or being taught. And to learning maths, numeracy was very challenging. So with him, we used matchsticks. So to learn how to count.
Actual matches?
Actual matches. So we would count them like from 1 to 10, then group 10 matchsticks to figure out the number 10, and then we would have 10 up to 20, then another group of matchsticks until we got to 100. It was very, I mean, learning numbers was painstakingly difficult, but eventually we got there. But he needed to be touching those matches. He needed to be able to visualize those figures, because if you write 1, 2, 3, it's so abstract for them. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, please.
Abriana is also good at maths, and I'm sure it's because that one, it's always written on the board. We solve the maths on the board. So when you write it on the board, she sees it, she studies it, she gets it. The next moment she'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
So she's good at maths. And then another thing is when she comes home, what did you learn today? Oh, we did science, maybe digestive system or food chain or whatever. Good. We go online, we search for that topic. And then when she sees the picture, it's not about the digestive system. We have this part, this part. But when she sees the picture, we have this is how it works. It passes here, it helps her a lot. But if the teacher stands and talks and talks and talks without a picture or without anything to demonstrate what you are teaching, it doesn't help her. So I think we have to look at that too.
Got
Thank
you.
you.
So visualization is what helps her. Okay. Madam Joy, I want to hand it back off to you because I want to go through the bullet point topics of what the assessment goes through. So if you can, is it green when you turn it on?
Hello.
Yes.
Okay.
So
What happens during assessment?
So if you can give us the top line categories that you go through, what is
Yeah.
the name of the things that you go through when you're in an assessment room for 1 to 3 hours?
Okay. So during assessment, the assessor will carry out a series of tests to explore aspects of the underlying ability, such as reading, writing, and spelling, handwriting, and motor skills. Underlying skills, phonological awareness, speed processing, and memory, speech, language, and auditory processing. There's also normally an informal chat before this happens to gather some information background. The aim is formally to diagnose that dyslexia, if that is supposed to be the case, and to assess performance on a range of items, allowing the assessor to consider strengths and weaknesses. So there isn't, so as I said before, this isn't an exam for pass or fail, but to collect the information that is needed, to consider factors which will be affecting learning, and to identify whether any reasonable adjustments needs to be done. Okay, so what sort of what sort of assessment test do we do for the dyslexics? The test, we ran different tests on like auditory processing skills, early written language, test on early written language, um, pragmatic language, written spelling, and like sometimes non-words that isn't real words, so that we could test how you're cognitive. And then we also have like different puzzles that you need to also perform to also show um, that you are actually thinking, your thinking process is actually working. Um, there is, well, I don't want to name the test names and stuff
Yeah, no,
because
it's
that's
it's fine. Just in
but
terms
this
of
is
top
this,
line things.
yeah, there is the wide range achievement test that we do, and then there's
What's it called?
intelligent wide 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 range
Wide, wide, uh-huh.
wide range achievement test.
Wide range achievement test. This is a test that a parent can ask for
No, no,
to
no,
be
no, it's not
done.
a test. You can't go in and say I want this test or that test.
Okay, so better question for you.
Yeah.
A parent wants to get their child assessed. What is the verbiage that they use?
Well, a parents want to get a child a test. Why do the parents want to? So you, the parents, must have noticed something.
Uh-huh.
That's why you think that you need a test.
Okay.
So you have that conversation with the assessor or with the school, normally with the schools, and
Mhm.
then the schools will refer you to us or the parents get in touch with us.
Okay.
So
Are
us,
there key words that they can specifically say? So, because I think what happens sometimes where parents might get defeated is they know that something's wrong, but the teacher's like, oh no, they're fine. Or like you said, oh, it's because they're bilingual. I've heard that, because they speak two languages. So what is some of like the buzzwords a parent can say to advocate for their child?
worried.
Worried.
I'm worried about my child. My child is not reading. My child is not making any progress. I
Mhm.
mean, and that I think, and most parents these days, because of the internet and the talk of dyslexia, you find they've gone online
Mhm.
and they've gone through some kind of tick list, and then they
Gotcha.
call you and said, "I've been online. I think my child is dyslexic." And they say, "How do you know?" Because
Okay.
you can't say that. So yes, a lot of people are coming up with their own diagnosis
Yeah.
and saying their children are dyslexics, but it's not. You have to have a specialist to work with you
Got
before
you.
you could say you're dyslexic.
Awesome. So I want to kick it back to Dorcas. I want to wrap us up with some final thoughts and some actual takeaways that we can all leave with because I know we've made some great notes. Um, you mentioned after getting your daughter's assessment, your verbiage changed in terms of how you talked to her and how you encouraged her. What are some of the things we should be saying to our little ones, even if we don't have a formal assessment, but we can see there's something off? What should language in the house look like to encourage them?
Abriana has two other siblings. And should I say, fortunately or unfortunately, they are not dyslexics. And they are good at reading, writing. They are the opposites of Abriana. And the good thing is, they've all accepted her condition. If she's reading or writing and she's not able to mention a word or she's not able to spell, she can call her younger brother who is 6 years. Nee, spell this word for me, and he will gladly do that. At home, they don't laugh at her, they don't tease her when it comes to reading and writing. So everyone has accepted her condition, even herself. Sometimes she will mention some words, she would change the words like car key, she will say key car, bed sheet, she can say shit bed. But we are all okay with her. We don't laugh at her. We correct her. And we have all accepted her the way she is. And we thank God for the improvement. And then one other thing that I would not stop saying is love. Let's love them more. Let's show them because when they go outside, sometimes at school, she's not able to spell a word. They laugh at her. She comes home, she's not able to spell a word. We also laugh at her. Are we helping her? So the good thing is show her love. So at home, no one is perfect. Everyone can make mistakes. We don't laugh at her. We rather help her. And we have also told her that if you are struggling with anything, even if I'm not there, your father is not there, your younger brother is there, he is willing to, everybody is willing to assist her. So at home, everyone should be ready to assist or help any dyslexics at all. And by so doing, we can help them to come out of their caves
Their
or yeah,
shame.
yes.
Their
So
shame.
because most of the time they are relaxed, they quiet themselves, they don't want to move out. But if we start from home, we build their confidence, we motivate them, it will go a long way to help them.
Thank you. Final thoughts, Godwin. Can you tell us what should educators be looking out for and what verbiage should they also be using around our little ones?
All right, great. For educators, I think it's about time we started using the blended approach, and for me, in any school, you should have a tutor for dyslexia, and that will basically go a long way to help, and there's an assessment from the reading panel, National Reading Panel, US, and for them, we haven't done in Ghana. Many schools do not basically, in terms of reading, teaching kids how to read and write, they are not up there. If you compare that to standard, way off. Few schools, 3 out of 4 schools, in terms of the bad side. Now they are trying to, I don't want to even talk about it. We need to come back to Ghana. So what we need to do is basically try to bring in this one more, bring in blended approach, and also find a way to the rep from the Ministry of Education is gone. I think she will still hear it later. We need to have meta learning tutors as well. Teachers who would know how to teach their kids how to learn. I keep saying this one, and I wrote down in my book, we give students what to learn, but we don't show them how to learn the information. We give it a
Ooh, say that
example.
again. Say that again.
We give students what to learn, but we don't teach them how to learn, you know. So it's about time we taught students how to learn, how to retain information, how to recall information, and go through all these ones. And this is my final words. I think it could help somebody here. Things you could do to train the mind. Could be any mind, dyslexic mind, non-dyslexic mind. And if you do these things, it would basically help. I call it headless, but I'll run through it quickly. If you want your mind to improve, make sure you stay hydrated. Your mind is 75% water. So you need to drink a lot of water. And I'll recommend coconut water for you.
Oh, wow.
Very good for hydration.
Okay.
The other one is exercise. We need to exercise more. So our kids, we need to get them to exercise more. It improves mood, attention, and memory. We also need to change the words, like you talked about, and I use that aim practice. The girl is gone, I think the final year student, she uses more affirmation. Affirmation is very, very powerful. It changes the mind. Imagination, meditation, good. So let them focus on these ones, will help. Diet, as parents, we also need to check as we help our kids. We need to check the foods they eat. Should do more fruits and vegetables. Shouldn't do more of the sugar, the junk food. It's not too good for the mind. If your mind takes more junk, it will give you junk back. you know. So we need to think about the foods they eat. And in my book, I talk about list of foods that you can basically eat to improve the mind. Learning, that's what we talked about. So I'll skip that one. Environment, she talked about it. The environment. So I wrote this: the mind you surround yourself with is the mind you create. So they need to check the environment. It's very, very powerful. I haven't got the time to go into that one. Then the other one is sunshine. We don't know about this one. It's quite unorthodox. Early morning sunshine is good for the brain. And I'll give you this brain checker or the checkout to know whether the rays are good for you. When you step in there and your shadow is taller, it means it's good for you. So between 6:30, I've done the check. You can also check, don't take my words for it, take your words for it. So you can get in there around 4:30, between 4:30 and Yeah, late evening and 6:30, you see your shadow being taller. It means the rays are good for you. It releases something called serotonin, which is good for mood. Okay, so it's good for memory. Then the last bit is sleep. We need to get them to sleep well. Sleep is powerful. So they tell you there's more sleep after death. That's the unwise statement.
Very true.
Sleep is good for this mind,
Yeah.
and it's good for learning.
Yeah.
So your kids, when they learn, it goes to a place called hippocampus. It's a memory center. When they sleep, the information is transferred to the neocortex. That's call it your hard drive. When you have information in your hard drive, you can easily remember it. So when it's not gone into your hard drive, we'll ask you again, you might not remember. Because when you learn, after 1 hour, 50% is gone. Did you know this? You learn, after 1 hour, 50% is gone. After 24 hours, 70% is gone. It's not your fault. It's called forgetting curve. So when they sleep well, they could get the information into the long term, and they are likely to remember it better when they wake up. So let's get them to sleep better. So these are some of the things that I would basically leave you with. And again, I've got a book on this, so I can't say everything here. If you get the book, you find all these things in there.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Joy, final thoughts. For you, what should educators be looking for?
Hi again. Yeah, educators should be actually in the classroom. They could do a lot by screening the children. I think all children should be screened actually. Don't wait to see that the child is struggling. So when the children come to your class, screen them
Can
before
you
even.
tell me what you mean by screened? What do you mean by screen the child?
Screening is um, basically just evaluating
Okay.
your class and making sure that they can do the work that they're supposed to do, their reading, their standard of whatever, and then actually put together the children that can't read with a child that can read, and have like how do you say it? Like having a friendship. What's it called?
Buddy system?
Buddy
Buddy system.
buddy. Thank you. I should have gone to sleep early. That's so having a buddy so the buddy will read and you read, or the child reads, and then the other one also follows. Provided, and also if there is a problem, let's highlight it early and not say it will go away. And even if parents come up and say their children are struggling, don't say to them, "Oh, you're worrying too much. The child is fine." Yes, there might be a problem, there might not, but at least let's have a look at it and be sure where we are with the children. And let's also continue to develop ourselves as educators. Don't say you trained 20 years ago and you're still there. Please, let's improve ourselves. There's so much now that we can also help and like have these sort of conversations to help us improve.
Amazing. Thank you. Natalie, final thoughts. Can you encourage the parents how to continue on the journey of advocacy? I know Madam Joy mentioned you have to be 7 for her organization to get an assessment. So you've gone through 7 years of, just observing your child. How can you please encourage parents on advocacy and how to continuously advocate for their child within the school system?
So um, I think as parents, um, we need to we need to bridge the gap um, with the school. I mean, for when the school is educating our child, we need to be able to bridge the gap when they need to be working at home, doing homework and everything. But we also, as parents, we are not educators. We are parents. And that is very important. And at the beginning, I hadn't understood that because I thought I was an educator as well. And I was being too much of an educator and not enough of a parent. And I think that is very important because children with dyslexia or other learning disabilities, I'm sure you know, when they come back home after a day at school, if you open a book, if you talk about homework, they they can literally kill you, you know. They just don't want to hear about anything related to reading, writing, spelling, calculating. And that we need to take that into account.
Yeah.
And that's a way of advocating. And so I gave my children the space not to do their homework even, you know.
That's beautiful.
When they couldn't do it, when they were really not in the mood, when they were tired, I said, okay, it's okay. Just play, do whatever. You learn in other ways, you know. That's one way of advocating. Now, for them to also, I mean, they are not determined by their disability. They are not determined by the education system. Yes, they would have to achieve some level of literacy, some level of numeracy, but then they, as we said earlier on the panel before, there are so many other professional routes, vocational routes that they can take that is not determined by their ability to read or write or spell or calculate. But then within the schools, I think they have to set realistic educational goals for the children. So a child who is neurotypical, as we would say, who fits within the norm, will write an essay, will be able to spell, will be able to do everything that is expected of him. But a child who is neurodiverse or dyslexic, um, if he or she can just write even one paragraph,
Mm-hmm.
is already
Be
a
celebrated.
big achievement, and
Yeah.
that has to be celebrated.
That's
You can't also assess children, dyslexic children, on their spelling. It's an absurdity. So they can make as many mistakes as they want. It's the content of their thoughts.
Yeah.
It's what they are trying to express, which is important. So there are all these, so the setting realistic educational goals and really giving the child a growth mindset. Um, and growth mindset, helping the child identify his superpower, his abilities, and helping him, I mean, motivating him to achieve those goals through the school system,
Yeah.
but not through intensive academic brainwashing or whatever vocabulary or word you want to use, and being open-minded to the different types of learning in the education, in the class, in the education system.
Amazing.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. On that note, that concludes our panel. Our goal for, I saw people taking notes, so the educators, I see that they're taking notes. Our goal for this panel was to make it very practical for you. We talked about the awareness, but we wanted you guys to walk away with tools, with words that you can go out and use in the communities to champion the dyslexic students, the dyslexic children around you. So I hope everyone got something. You learned something a little new today. Our educators, our parents are going to be here if you want to connect with them. And when we're talking about the actual assessment process, if you have further questions, there are people here for you to connect with. So please make sure we're utilizing that information. So thank you guys.
All right. Okay. All right. Can we put it up for them one more time? I'm definitely getting one of your books. I hope you brought them here. Fantastic. Because you mentioned meta learning. Um, awesome. Can we please do it one more time for them? Okay. I have good news and good news. Which one do you want first? Fantastic. Now you are in the loop. All right. So, the good news is we're going to skip lunch. You see? For some people, are like, hey. Now, the other good news is
Of course, I'm going to tell them, don't worry. The other good news is because we're going to skip lunch right after the next panel, we are done. You're free to go home. So, in order for us to stick to time, we are packing lunch for everybody to take away. So, can we now celebrate the two good news? All right. Now, I want to really take time and recognize the amazing work of Martin Atakwesi Nyamiche from the Bible Society, who is currently working right now. Can we please celebrate him? And to take over from him is Joseph Yarato Kofi Mensah, our two sign language. Joseph is from Multi Kids Inclusive Academy. Now, before I bring my next panel, I'm going to have an amazing woman from UNICEF come here and tell us in about 3 to 5 minutes the work that UNICEF is doing in inclusive education. So I'm bringing on board. Can my people help me get my pulpits back? Thank you. My glass pulpit. I really, really enjoyed this section, by the way. Did you enjoy it? Yeah, I love meta learning. I love meta learning. Meta learning, by the way, is a branch in pedagogy that focuses on learning how to learn. How many of us know there are 8 types of intelligence and that we all learn very, very differently? So that's a very powerful thing. And it's not something I often hear people talk about. So I'm definitely getting the book. And I don't sleep. So I hope I don't spend too much time reading the book that I don't sleep. All right. Let me do my work by myself. All right. So from UNICEF, Miss Rhoda Enchel, can we please receive her? Thank you. All right.
Good afternoon. I would also like to stand on existing protocols. I bring you warm greetings from the UNICEF family, and anything that has to do with children, women, vulnerable populace, you understand why UNICEF will be there to work with partners, to work with government, to improve the equity agenda. Before I say anything, I would like to congratulate the Africa Dyslexia organization for this very timely and important event today. Even though we know the conversation around dyslexia has just started, I think ADO should be proud that they are taking the lead in starting this discussion. Dyslexia is a gray area for us, and I'm sure most of us in this room would not have been aware about this condition without being part of this forum. We are also aware there are other learning difficulties that are not also being talked about. And so we are very excited as UNICEF to be here today to see how best we can collaborate with both state and non-state actors to push the discussion forward. I would also want to take this opportunity to congratulate all our students who have been able to complete their basic education as well as senior high school education, especially those with special educational needs. We want to say Aiko to our determined learners who defied all odds to be able to complete their basic education. We also say well done to our gallant teachers who, despite all the challenges that these children face, both at school and at home, were able to help them to be part of the teaching and learning process. Of course, we cannot leave our dear parents and caregivers out. They have also shown love and provided all the support for these children to have access to education. Of course, we can also leave the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service out when it comes to providing that enabling environment for all these learners to learn. Over the years, UNICEF has continued to work with the Ministry of Education and Ghana Education Service. We work at the policy level, system, and practice levels. Currently, as a country, we have the inclusive education policy, and UNICEF played a very critical role in providing technical and financial support for that policy to be developed. At the moment, the policy is being reviewed, and we are happy to say that ADO also played a very critical role in terms of bringing out the emerging issues to be highlighted in this policy. And once the reviewed policy is also ready, UNICEF will continue to work with government and partners in terms of operationalization. At the system level, a lot of capacity building programs have been initiated, including scale up of the universal design for learning principles, which we believe that as a country is the surest way to go. A lot of the panelists we have had here this morning and afternoon have spoken about the different ways that children learn. Of course, if we should pay attention to the different kinds of ways children learn, we believe that it will also go a long way not to just help these learners with learning difficulties, but every child in the classroom. At the end of the day, every child is going to win. So that is the surest way to go. We have also at the practice level made investments in doing a lot of sensitization at the community level, at the district level, partnering with organizations like Ghana Federation for Disabilities Organization. We have also supported with screening because early identification, like our panelists have said, and assessment is also the way to go because early detection is also part of the solution. So we need to make investment in that. I would like to end by saying that UNICEF and the entire UN community in Ghana will continue to work with government in all sectors and also work with other non-state actors like Africa Dyslexia Organization to advance equity issues in Ghana because we are just about 7 years away from the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm sure that you all agree with me that as stakeholders from different sectors, we need to come together. We need to work together to make sure that no child is left behind. But how can we achieve that if areas like dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, all these areas are not being paid attention to? Now is the time to work together. Indeed, we need to be the voice for the voiceless. Thank you very much.
Can we do it one more time? All right. So, before we go into our last panel, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to break protocol for protocol's sake. So, what I want you to do is, can we please be up and standing? You can choose not to, so that everybody will see that you're the rebel. Find two people and give them high five and tell them they're looking stunning. Come on, let's do that for a quick 30 seconds. Tell them how nice they look. You look amazing. All right. Awesome. Awesome. You may be seated. You may be seated. I just wanted you to shake a bit of that air conditioning chill off. Yeah, so that you don't freeze. Okay, I'm going to do two things that I've not been paid to do, but I will do it. Where's a member of the team? Please come grab me our ADO pull-up banner. I told you guys I was there the night I was born. I tell you another story. So you understand how. Have you ever been so obsessed with an idea that you just got that you couldn't sleep all night? Has it happened to you before? That is how Rosalind ended up doing this logo by herself. That logo that you see, can we please celebrate it? I wish I had this other one though. I want them to see our work and mission and vision. Sorry, just collect it. It's on this one too. Okay, you can bring that one. Bring it. I'm sorry. Let's celebrate the young man. So, after she called me about this idea and she threw all of it in my ear and I wrote down the profile and everything. I said, hey, it's 2 a.m. Let's go to sleep. Tomorrow we meet for it. I woke up in the morning. She had sent the logo. The logo was already on the cap. It was on the t-shirt. I was like, what is going on here? And how many years now? 3.5 years now. Can we celebrate Rosalind? So this is the Africa Dyslexia Organization, so that you know that when you think dyslexia, think about us first. Don't think about anybody. UNICEF, us, only us. We know other partners can do, but us and all our partners. So Africa Dyslexia Organization is dedicated to championing awareness about dyslexia and related learning differences. Our vision is to build a world-class organization dedicated to helping dyslexic people and those with specific learning differences across the continent. Our mission is to empower dyslexics and people with reading and writing differences to become productive. We do a lot of consultancy, which is the real reason why I wanted you to know this, so that you know who to talk to when you have need for any of these things. We do needs assessment, tailor-made trainings, professional capacity development, resource development, and then research and evaluation. So anything dyslexic, who do you think about first? Let's do it again so that I know my work is done. I will tax Rosalind for this later. Anything dyslexic, who do you think about? Put your hands together for Africa Dyslexia Organization. All right. Let's do our final panel so we can go home. Who wants to go home? Me. All right, our next panel will be moderated by Dr. Evelyn Casey, who is a lecturer in my alma mater. I was in University of Ghana. Yeah, by the way, in school they thought I wouldn't make it because I didn't like class. Dr. Evelyn Folake Casey is a highly regarded African scholar with citizenship in Ghana, Nigeria, and Canada. I need to see you after this. You know something I don't know. He specializes in the convergence of Black critical disability, Black global health, and early childhood development studies and education. With a career spanning 25 years, she has collaborated globally with organizations in Africa, North America, and Europe. Dr. Kisi holds a doctorate in critical disability studies from York University, Toronto, and an MA focusing on early childhood education, inclusion, and policy. Her professional journey includes training on confronting anti-Black racism, inclusive education, consultancy roles with grassroots organizations, and managing programs for homeless youth shelters dealing with addiction issues. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Evelyn Folake. And Rosa, thank you. The retinue of panelists and speakers. Guys, can we celebrate Rosa one more time? It's insane. First on the panel is Daniel Dochi, or when you come, we'll have a conversation about this name. He's the co-founder and CEO of Lead for Ghana. Prior to launching LFG, Daniel worked as a biotechnologist at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals. Before he ventured into the pharmaceutical world, Daniel studied biomedical engineering at Cornell University with a keen interest in nanotechnology. I love nanotechnology. For those of you who don't know, nanotechnology is we bring in tiny little bit robots to come and help your immune system fight diseases. Technology is going somewhere, guys. That's what Daniel studied. Daniel's Cornell education was made possible by the Lester B. Knight Scholarship for Bright Students with a keen interest in engineering and business. The scholarship's impact went beyond the financial freedom to pursue his passions, and Daniel was compelled and motivated to explore ways in which he could positively impact others in the way that the scholarship had done. This led him to establish a 30,000 book capacity library in his home country, Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Doche. I'm going to bring to you Dr. Odemat, who was born in Ghana, completed her primary education in West Africa. Before joining the world of international education, she was involved in developing and managing education and protection programs for children of all ages in Africa and the Middle East. As a United Nations officer and consultant, she designed and managed programs in early childhood development, mental health, child labor, in addition to education in emergencies and conflict areas. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Fatma Odemat. I hope I got the name right. That's the director of Al Rayyan International School. Can we celebrate her? Come on, you can do it better. Please, one last applause so I can get discount for my child. Doc, this last clap was for discount for when I bring my child. Yeah, I will remind you. I will bring to you Ales Amankwa, who's a highly skilled professional specializing in neuro-linguistic programming with a deep passion for education and a focus on supporting learners with specific learning disabilities. Ales currently serves as the unit head of learning disabilities at the Ghana Education Service HQ Special Education Division. In this pivotal role, Ales plays a crucial part in developing and implementing strategies to assist students with learning disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, Ales Amankwa. And then, of course, I'm going to bring you Sonia Abuaje. Sonia is the principal of Multi-Kids Inclusive Academy and has a long-standing interest and expertise in providing effective intervention for children and adults with dyslexia. She's a UK qualified speech and language therapist and a teacher with over 20 years experience. She's also a dyslexia specialist and trained under the auspices of the late Professor Bevy Hornsby, one of UK's pioneers in dyslexia intervention and the author of the Alpha to Omega program. Prior to moving to Ghana in 2018, Sonia was the development director of Fairley House School, London's largest school for children with specific learning disorders, where she worked for 7 years. Ladies and gentlemen, the principal for Multi Kids Inclusive Academy, Sonia Abuaje. And finally, I will bring you Peter Enum. Peter is a seasoned facilitator, course developer, and a productivity coach. Peter is dedicated to improving personal effectiveness, leadership, and team dynamics. His extensive experience includes impactful work with renowned organizations like the National Youth Authority and Commonwealth Youth Program. His global involvement spans the UK, Australia, Kenya, Morocco, Malaysia, Trinidad and Tobago, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ghana, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Turkey. Ladies and gentlemen, inclusive education consultant for British Council, Peter Enum. All right, Doc, your panelist, your audience.
Thank you. We'll just wait for Peter. Thank you. My goodness, it looks like I got the hardest panels. I think we're waiting for someone to remove this so that the world can see what I'm up against. Beautiful. Thank you, gentlemen. So it is, I'll say good afternoon. It's afternoon, right? Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to be moderating the topic of the forum theme, Rethinking Inclusivity in Education, addressing the needs of dyslexic students. I am excited to be moderating such an amazing panel that I had to Google each one of you. You know, as a researcher, you can't just come and just do some flying. So please bear with us today. Today, we've heard from dyslexic superheroes in the morning, parents, and questions from the audience. Actually, we didn't get questions in the audience today. So now after this, okay, so keep your questions for now. That has brought us to this stage. On this panel,
I will be focusing on engaging our panelists on what their organization and they themselves have done to reimagine inclusivity. My goal is to also push the critical discussion envelope to reimagining a way forward. So what I'm saying is, even though they have done it, what can we do further to push the needle? To a way forward to inclusivity in order to help our stakeholders and interested audience on what they can do to move forward. So I start with Dr. Fatima Odima. I know you said you're cold, but it's all good. Okay, to start with, your school uses an online platform for teaching and learning. How do you do online learning and inclusive education at Auraya?
So I guess this has been a journey. We started in 2015. So, but I guess the thing is, I'm not a traditional teacher, so I didn't come out from teaching college, my bachelor in education. I came out of medicine and public health, and I worked for international organizations many years on the aspect of children and women. I work, and my training and programs were all around children in armed conflict zones, child labor, moving kids in the labor force back into schools. So it wasn't traditional. So our way of thinking, our way of developing projects and programs was always out of the box because we needed to really design something that these children needed. We needed to design programs and projects to really meet the needs of our community. So I came from that kind of thinking, and I came back. I was born in Ghana. I came back here in 2011, and thinking like now I need to put all that experience that I've gotten back into the community, and for me to see what change can I implement. And this is where Aris was expected to get a principal from the UK. And then 2 weeks before, he doesn't show up. And they knew that I've done so much work and projects with children. They said, can I cover for a year until that principal came in? And that was 13 years back. So that's how, but I went back, got my master's in education, but specializing in international education policy. But the key thing is when I sat to kind of design the program in ARIS and the education, I really looked at my training, which is children's rights, the concept and the convention of children's rights, where education, that every child has the right to education, every child. I do not design schools where I say, I can take you, but I will not take your other kids. Like I can take one of your kids, but I will not take the other kids because my school is not designed for them. So with that thinking and that mindset, we sat together and we started designing programs on how to become a completely inclusive school. It wasn't easy. It was a startup. We still make a lot of mistakes, but I guess very early on, we also realized that technology needed to play a huge role for access and equity. To ensure we have that means we need tools to be in place. So we started very early on bringing in tools, moving also purely to technology. And I found it very weird because that was the training I received in organizations that dealt with children. But weirdly enough, when I came to school, I asked, do you have training in child's rights? Do you understand what it means not to discriminate among children? Do you know how to understand how to think about the best interest of every child in decision making? This was not the case, and this is not something we have in our educational programs. So this is how we started. In 2015, we started introducing a lot of technology. Now our students from early years up to secondary, they have their devices. We actually, during COVID, we went into online learning 2 months before COVID. So we had already an emergency online plan in place. A month before, we used to put students in a class and teachers in another class, and already started our online teaching 1 month before COVID hit. Because we had started 5 years before moving everything online. So we started first first off, also, you don't start with the students. You have to move your systems up. So it's really about system thinking also. So I need to move my whole school to be in an online, and so we used all our softwares, digital books, libraries, all of that. We started migrating, ensuring all our teachers had the right devices also. So it's also ensuring about to have all of this in place. So we started luckily 5 years before COVID. We made technology a core of what we do. And since then, I think everything we've put in place, what has happened for COVID now with generative AI, we realized that the journey we started in 2015 was the right journey.
Okay. Thank you. So I would go into research, especially when it comes to screen time and education. But Doc, I don't think Madam Rosalind is looking at me right now, so I'll just turn. But I don't think we have the time. So we'll talk about that off camera. So my next question to you now is, what measures do you employ to ensure accountability among your teachers to making sure that they are actually creating that inclusive classroom for each child that some of us or some schools do turn away?
So this is, I've been with the school for 12 and 13 years, and the great thing that I went through last year was a reflection, more to think back that if I could go back 10 years back, what would be the process? What did I learn from all these years of putting things into place, and how to, and I advise it to everybody who comes and visits us. The first thing you've got to do to support your teachers is, sit together as a community with all the research that is in place when it comes to education and define your learning principles. So how does learning happen in your school? And when you design these learning principles, anybody that enters your schools knows, so this is the kind, you see it in the classroom, you see it in the corridors, you'll see it in the playground, you'll see it with everybody, every teacher, wherever you go, you'll understand that's what we believe learning is all about. And this is how this is how we do it in our schools. So we have 8 learning principles. One of them is the use of technology and education technology. But for example, it's inquiry-based, it's conceptual understanding, it's focused on well-being, personalization. So we don't talk, for example, one thing we've moved, we don't talk about special education needs in our school. We talk about personalized learning. We have our personalized learning support department, because their role is not to work with special kids, because every child in our school is special, but their role is to support teachers in personalizing learning for every one of our students.
Beautiful.
So that's what we've done. So, and that's what throughout the years, but if any school is thinking about starting that journey, I would say that's the first thing. Because once you have your learning principles, and these are not something you just come out of your head, these are research-based. You have to go look into the research about learning, about neurodiversity, all the neuroscience research that has taken place in the past 15 years to really understand how does the brain learn. Before we were so focused, even in teacher training, on how the teacher should teach. Now we're focused on how do students and children learn, and what do we need to put in place in our schools to ensure that learning happens naturally and in a joyful, happy way. So that's the first thing you've got to do. And once these are defined, then, for example, for our teachers, we take them and we develop a teacher personal growth plan. So also knowing that students and teachers are learners. There's no, I cannot tell you the amount of unlearning and learning we have to do with as teachers in these days. It's crazy. So even the tools that we're using in our classrooms, whatever you used last semester, there are new tools now for us to be using. So these once we did that, we developed a personal growth plan where teachers assess where they are at. So it's not also us saying you're here, or we spoke about in the previous plenary about the teacher evaluation. It's not up to me to tell you. You should know where you are. about in your learning journey as a teacher. Like, what can I do? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And providing proofs and recordings of some things, or planners they've developed in their school management system. So looking at all of that, teachers can easily assess to say, I'm still weak at this, I'm developing here, I'm doing this in a very good way. So this allows also teachers to say, I need more training, I need more coaching on this process. So that's what we've done. We've defined our learning principles. We've assigned the teachers to understand what's a spectrum in these learning principles where I become an expert teacher. And we dedicate more than $200,000 every year just for teacher training and certification.
Wow.
So we have teachers doing, I went back to Harvard to get a master's in international education policy, and the school paid half of my master's. Same thing, we have at least 10 teachers who complete their master's every year paid by the school. What we've worked on very hard is to ensure that we develop the skills that we need within our school setting to ensure that we have in school the right coaches to support the teachers to develop the necessary skills.
Okay.
So it's really a whole system
Oh,
that starts with these learning principles.
I like that. The system thinking. It would be interesting to look at the turnover rate and to see how that has decreased over time with this new system that you have in place. Thank you for giving us that overall of how you support your teachers as well. Now I will come to Mr. Dutche. Dutche. Sorry for butchering your name. From Lead for Ghana. So from your website, I quote, Lead for Ghana recruits and trains young leaders, known as fellows, and places them in underdeserved schools across Ghana to combat educational inequality and enhance learning outcomes. Through our effort, we strive to build a robust leadership pipeline and foster sustainable transformation within the education sector. That's a mouthful. Now, my question is, how is Lead for Ghana's main goal, and how does it seek to tackle educational inequality and enhance learning outcomes in Ghana pertaining to inclusive education?
Thank you very much for that question. Actually, my last name is very interesting because people tend to pronounce it in different ways. The worst I've heard is Doyce. So I was at a conference, and this lady was calling someone saying Daniel Doyce, Daniel Doyce. I'm like, it's Daniel Doyce.
So I wasn't
So
that bad.
you weren't that
Not good.
So I figured it was me, walked up to her, and we were able to engage with that. At Lead for Ghana, we have a fundamental belief, which is education is the silver bullet solution to all societal problems. If in every to place, you have better doctors, better politicians, better nurses, better engineers, better hospitals. It all stems from education. If you have a weak educational system, you will have weak leaders, you will have weak politicians, you will have weak financial systems, you will have weak workplace systems, right? So the whole idea is, how do we make sure that our focus, our energy, and our resources is targeted towards education? Because once we solve that, everything else is done. So we have a very simple vision. The vision is this. Any child in this country, once you walk into a classroom, whether it's in Navrongo, Sisala, Nyankpala, it doesn't matter. You should receive the best possible education, because great ideas also come from anywhere. And if you don't create that system, you will be losing out on some of the biggest ideas that could transform the nation as a whole. So it's very important that every child has access to that. The question is, even though education is the silver bullet solution to all societal problems, there is no silver bullet solution to education, and it's the most complex system to solve. So Lead for Ghana's theory of change here is, let's find the best and brightest young people we can find. Just like how any corporate does, right? The corporations go out there and they recruit the best people to go work for them. But for some reason, you don't see education industries going into those same spaces and recruiting them. So our first model is find the best and brightest people. High GPA, demonstrated some kind of leadership in school. They have some wherewithal to actually change the country. So we find these young people, we train them for about 6 weeks, and then we deploy them to go into rural communities to stay there for 2 years. They have two mandates. One, increase the academic performance of your students. If it's at a 5% pass rate, get it to at least 75% pass rate before you leave the school. Two, identify a challenge within the community and solve it. It could be anything. It could be bringing water to the community. It could be bringing electricity to the community. It doesn't matter. The reason we try to do that is to build their leadership capacity, so they know how to engage with, chiefs, members of parliament, district chiefs, chief executives, and so forth. So when they move into leadership positions, they already have the skill set. They have the language and the leverage to move, systems around. Within those 2 years, they are able to identify so many factors that affect education, and this is where inclusivity comes in. So when they're out after the 2 years, they know exactly which problem to go and solve to tackle the educational system. So for instance, if you have a child in Avrongo that walks about an hour and a half to get to the classroom, okay? By the time that child gets to the classroom, the child is very tired. It is very difficult to teach a child that is tired. They're not going to listen to you. They're tired and they're hungry too. There's nothing you can do with that kid, right? That is not an education problem. It's a transportation problem, right? Which is affecting education. When a child in, let's say, the Western region gets sick of malaria, they tend to stay out of school for about 3 weeks. When a child in Accra gets sick from malaria, they stay out of school 3 days. Now, one child has mixed 3 weeks of learning, another child has mixed 3 days of learning. That is not an education problem. It's a healthcare issue. So do you understand how the different factors are beginning to fix education? So when a fellow identifies this, after the 2 years, his or her job is, I am going to move into the healthcare system and fix the healthcare systems that affect education. One also identified a transportation issue, so they're going to move into the transportation industry and solve the transportation issue so that it affects education. So the whole idea of what we're trying to do is building this system of leaders that are all bound by one common cause, which is how do we build a country where every child has access to education? However, I have my tentacles everywhere in finance, in transportation, in healthcare, in technology, doesn't matter. So last point, if I'm a district director and I need computers to my school and I call an alumni in the tech industry, how many minutes do you think it would take to get those computers to my school? It happens quickly because that alumni understands the challenges within education and they understands how technology affects education. So they're going to leverage their resources in the technology space to affect education. So in a broad sense, that's what Lead for Ghana has been doing quietly for the past 10 years.
Thank you. Thank you. I like and doing quietly that the whole world did not know about, and I had to research that. Okay, thank you for that. So again, on your website, a researcher will always be a researcher. Sorry. It also states that we commit people, funds, which you have touched on, and ideas to ensure that all children in Ghana can have access to a great education. And Nkrumah will always say, education in Ghana is every child's independence right. So I'm glad that you are all restating this in today's discussion. So the question here is, could you elaborate on Lead for Ghana's approach to recruiting and training individuals for inclusive practice, particularly providing examples and specific support tailored for children with dyslexia? If you don't have one, what do we, well, I'm not done yet, wait. If we don't have one, I'm just giving you, a preamble If we don't have one, what are we going to do to rethink? And if you are currently not doing so, which I just said, what does rethinking inclusivity means to your bottom line goal?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really good question. I think they're two in one. The one is about recruitment and the other one is about inclusivity. So let me take the inclusivity one first. I mean, our vision is all children. All children means all children. It doesn't whether disabled, dyslexic, it doesn't matter. It's all children. So there's a lot that we are learning. And because we focus mostly in underserved rural communities, there's just so much disparities and so many barriers over there. And I mean, there's so many dyslexic kids in Ghana, a lot. We just don't know it, right? And especially for kids that are in rural communities, their parents don't even have the awareness to even know. So those kids are just, cast aside. The truth is, we are learning. We learn as we go. And as we learn, we try to put in, systems and measures to curb it. To be honest, personally, I literally started learning about dyslexia quite recently when Rosalind walked into my office and asked me to support her on a project, and now I've kind of like delved, much into it. So now we're moving to a point where every fellow in the program is actually going to take, lessons on how to identify kids with dyslexia. So when they're in the classrooms, they can be able to identify these children. And it's important because I think there are about 500 senior high schools in the country, the government senior high school. Lead for Ghana is in about 100 of those schools. So if you think about it, 1 in every 5 senior high school students is being touched by Lead for Ghana. So to me, the numbers are huge. So if we can find more fellows that can identify this challenge, it helps us. And we are trying to transfer the same thing into foundational literacy and learning across all basic schools as well. So we can identify this right at the very beginning, maybe class 1, class 2, before they even get to JHS and so forth. The second question around recruitment. See, the thing is, recruitment is, think about it. When you tell young people to go to teaching, they just laugh at you, right? Teaching is not the most lucrative space for them to go into, and I don't blame them. It's because we haven't done a good job of selling the teaching profession to be what it is. And especially the ones that have like, second class, upper, first class, they want to go into the banks, the tech companies. And so it can become quite challenging for you to recruit those people and take them into rural areas of all places. A little story. When we started Lead for Ghana, National Service said, when we post people to the northern region, they come and do connections to change it. What makes you think you're going to take the smartest Ghanaians and post them to a region where they'll be doing connections to change it? I also remember I was in the boardroom of a corporate company trying to raise funds, and they told me, look, these smart people are not going anywhere. They all want to come and work for us and so forth. But it's the thing I learned about young people. When you throw a challenge to young Ghanaians, they rise to the occasion. If they understand the challenge really well and you are able to provide a platform that they trust, they will blow your mind away. So when we go to universities now, it's incredible. Every year we get about maybe 8,000 registered applicants, and sometimes we're only picking 200 people out of that. So the interest is high. But we need to do it. First, we need to trust and believe in the young people of Ghana because they hold the solutions to our challenges. We shouldn't cast them away. So if we can do that, I think the country will move forward in leaps. Thank you.
Thank you. One last question. This one, for me, inclusive education span, not just even within the education. Recently, we completed a conference on education, disability in education, and how representation matters within, and you just mentioned it as well. So this one is, can you share your current composition of your organization board members, specifying the total number of members, the count of females, and the count of individuals with disability? Oh, mommy, yeah. He knows why I'm asking this, so please. So yes, please.
I know. I mean,
Definitely.
this is a trick question. Look,
Oh, it's not tricky. Cry.
look, um, we have a lot of work to do as far as
Ah.
governance. As far as governance, it's true. I mean, it's historic, right?
Yes.
The point is, look, right now, we can do it better. I mean, we are on the pathway of changing the female ratio on the board. It's a lot male, but historically, it's funny, right? Because when we began, there were more females than male on the board, and then it kind of transitioned the other way because we had more females whose board terms had come to a close, transition out, and then it happens on the new board members. Maybe I was just not very intentionally loud, but it happened that they were male. Ask me this question in 4 months.
Okay.
Okay.
I will take you up on it. Thank you. So you see, the question wasn't as bad as it thought. He knew what I was thinking. He took it in good faith. So in the next 4 months, we'll take him up on that so that we see more women. Madam Sonia Abuaje, right? Your school is based more on British curriculum. I think our school here, mainly, Cambridge curriculum and the Montessori for your early years school, right? I think earlier on, someone mentioned, I think it was our MC mentioned that obviously our education in Ghana is built on colonial legacy. Your school vision is to create an inclusive society where all people can live side by side respectfully and appreciate that we each have a distinct contribution to make to the world. Now, here's my question. Can you elaborate on how your school is fostering the creation of a society where all people can live side by side in Ghana? Given that your curriculum is based on foreign philosophy. Ukofa academy.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, Multi-Kids Inclusive Academy is in its 13th year. Thank you. You hear the word inclusion being used all over the place. It's become a buzzword. What I want to highlight is that inclusion is a spectrum or a continuum, just like we talk about autism. So we have mild autism, moderate, and severe. In terms of inclusion, we have inclusion light, which might be a school accepting 1 or 2 children into its classrooms, aided by a facilitator. And then we might have a more moderate version, which would involve maybe a specialist unit with trained special needs teachers. And then we have inclusion plus, which is where multi-kids lies. And inclusion plus involves a multidisciplinary team. So although this is called dyslexia education stakeholders, actually dyslexia needs a multidisciplinary team. A multidisciplinary team involves teachers. It involves speech and language therapists. It involves occupational therapists. It involves psychologists and counselors. Somebody earlier mentioned that they were told their child had word blindness in the first panel. One of the difficulties that we see with dyslexia involves visual processing difficulties. So, as somebody else said, you'll be reading, you'll be scanning text, and you'll skip words or you'll skip lines or you'll read half of a word. Is it necessarily a teacher that would fix that issue? No. There's a special professional area called behavioral optometry. Doesn't exist in Ghana. We also have another area, orthoptics. Okay, they look at how the muscles work together in the eyes. Okay, takes a whole team, right? And that's Inclusion Plus. And that's where Multi-Kids is. Now you ask me, why are we using a British curriculum? I would like to say that we use multiple curriculum pathways, actually. We would use the Ghana education system if it had a special needs pathway. Unfortunately, it doesn't. So that's my answer. So I would welcome that. I think that the Ghana education curriculum has a lot to offer. And the fact that we follow a UK pathway does not in any way diminish the value of the Ghana education system curriculum. We also at Multi-Kids, we have an early years pathway, as you mentioned. We have the Cambridge International Education pathway. We also have a pathway for children who have intellectual disabilities called ASDAN. And that also lets them have the opportunity to get to college level using hands-on learning. Then we also offer IGCSE and BTEC.
Beautiful. Thank you. So you've answered, I think, 3 of my questions, so I'll move to the last one. Could you provide us examples of how Multi-Kids has realized its vision since its establishment, since 2010?
Thank you. So inclusion and fostering inclusion for dyslexic learners is based really on 3 key areas: creating an inclusive classroom environment, having a fantastic team of educators and other professionals, and having the right interventions and resources. So those are the 3 key principles. In terms of inclusion, Multi-Kids is driven by a vision of inclusion and social justice, in that society needs everybody's contribution. Let me give you an example. Ghana, I'm so proud of being a Ghanaian. Who's proud of being a Ghanaian here? Right, okay. Now, we talk about our assets in Ghana, right? Look at our flag. We've got the yellow, which stands for gold, right? We've got the green, which stands for our timber. Yeah, I won't talk about the red, the sacrifices of our ancestors, but we talk about all of the mineral and other physical assets that we have as a nation. But what about our human capital? Because before we are able to extract that gold, we need human ingenuity, don't we? So why are we not harnessing our human capital? Dyslexia is one part of a bigger issue in relation to our education system. In the US, I think 23% of the population is functionally illiterate, right? So that means that reading signs, labels is challenging, right? And that equates to about 44 million people in the United States. And as a result, those people are excluded. They're excluded from society. If you look at out of that 44 million who are functionally illiterate, I think you have about, don't know the exact figure, but in terms of the American population, about 6%, 6 to 10% who are dyslexic, okay? And in the prison population, you have about 50 to 60% who are dyslexic, right? So we have a situation where children are excluded because of their literacy challenges, and then are later excluded as adults entering into the criminal justice system. So at Multi-Kids, we believe that we need to create an environment which acknowledges difference, which provides acceptance, which provides love. And from that basis, we can then provide the specific tools that are needed to enable children to address these challenges. In terms of teacher education, as Dr. Fatima mentioned, we get a lot of teachers who have qualified with special education or basic education, and they arrive at school and we need to give them actual training in how to teach reading and writing, how to understand the nature of the English language, fundamentally, before we can then give them specialist training in dyslexia. And that's one of the things that Multi-Kids has invested heavily in over the last 13 years. The other thing that Multi-Kids has done is to heavily support the training and development of allied health professionals in Ghana. So Multi-Kids provides placements for occupational therapists, physiotherapists, speech and language therapists, as well as trainee teachers, to give them an insight into working in an inclusive setting. The other thing that the school has done is to invest heavily in resources, both digital resources and paper-based resources, and to innovate practice. So practice which involves collaboration. So one of the things that we do is push in therapy, where speech and language therapists or occupational therapists go into the classroom and work with the teachers to deliver specific interventions. So through changing attitudes to dyslexia, to the idea that difference is welcome, okay, everybody is valued, no one should be excluded, empowering people with the skills and giving them the resources, that's how we've been able to pioneer inclusion.
Thank you. So, Mr. Peter Anum, thank you. You are the Inclusive Education Consultant for the British Council. Oh, See how my people don't have faith in me. Could you provide us some context on how and some of the ways in which British Council has contributed to the arena of inclusivity and equity in education in Ghana?
Well, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Yeah, thank you very much. So the British Council has for many years been working around key areas. One of them is education, and it is one of the pillar areas they drive support, not just for in classroom, but even to the policymakers. And I must say that over the last close to 10 years, about 9 years now, the council, as part of its approach to encourage not just inclusivity, but to ensure that no one is left behind, uh, ran a beautiful program called the Connecting Classroom. Now, the Connecting Classroom program, it's the British Council global education program that is targeted at encouraging young people to develop the knowledge, skills, and the values when it comes to learning in the classroom. And so it's not just about driving inclusivity, but it's about ensuring that the teaching and learning process in our various schools are well designed and delivered such that young people or everybody, including those with special needs, are able to use their own, self from thinking to their bodies and ensuring that they move in the direction of development. And so we actually had to do a course design, working with the stakeholders across the education landscape. Went down to do the delivery of a beautiful course of a 3 day, 4 days, 5 days, not just for teachers, but even school leaders. Because if we are talking about, leaving no one behind, then we cannot leave out the school leaders. You must also think about those who are leading and managing, the educational landscape within the country. So the focus was not just on teachers in the classroom, but it was also focused on school leaders, even policymakers, because we had to bring, people from NACA, GAS, and all other stakeholder, institutions that does with policy, and take them through the program. And the program was how do we inculcate the 21st century core skills in the classroom delivery? And so, and the teacher is teaching mathematics. How can the teacher ensure that every single student is participatory? What kind of pedagogic instructional methodologies that the teacher would have to employ in the classroom to ensure that everyone is involved? What kind of classroom arrangements, must be employed to ensure that everybody is in? What kind of questioning techniques must be employed to ensure that everyone in the classroom, the learning process is involved? Okay, so, it was a beautiful program such that everywhere we went, and I might say thanks to British Council, we were able to train close to about 10,000,
Wow.
teachers and school leaders across the country. Yeah, and in every case, all the teachers realized that you're actually doing surface learning instead of deep learning, because just like we saw in the first panel, and even the second panel where, Nana was talking about the regimental approach to learning. In the second panel, we're talking about, how do we, deliver in the classroom when there are assessment. Okay, you realize that, especially in our public schools, and I do share the sentiment you expressed earlier on about the fact that the Ghanaian curriculum do not, give room for, people with dyslexia or people with special needs. And until 2015, yes, until 2015, when Ghana adopted that, inclusivity policy, there's no much guidelines or policy to guide. And even after that adoption, a lot of our teachers in our various schools do not really have good understanding of what it takes to include everyone in the teaching and learning process in our various schools. right? And that's why the MC would say that even at the university, they think he wouldn't have passed. So it's just a practical example, and it goes through to the university. And so British Council's focus was how do we rectify, the situation. And to start with, there are teachers in the system. How do we change the narrative? How do we get them to rethink the delivery in the classroom so that young people can develop critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, leadership, citizenship? How do we inculcate these in the classroom delivery? You know, then of course the school leaders. And so British Council over the last, a couple of years has been very much, particular, very much deliberate in training and building the capacity of key stakeholders, including teachers and school leaders in our various schools across the country, in ensuring that no one is left behind.
Thank you. I think, Mr. Amankwa, I'll come to you last, but just be taking your points because it looks like everyone is directing to you. So, Mpacho Chenwai. So, to you, sir, your website states that the British Council assists schools in achieving accreditation as Cambridge schools. Can you offer insight into the inclusivity of the Cambridge checkpoint for students with diverse needs?
Yeah, so like I indicated earlier on, the council is very much particular about inclusivity and diversity. And so one of the checkpoints is to ensure that if you want to get accreditation to run the Cambridge system, you must prove that you have, first of all, the policy. The minimum thing we can look at is policy. There must be at least some form of a document that is binding, right? There must be that, commitment to ensuring that no one is left behind. So that is one. The second is about the facility, and so the team would always move to your facility to do a double check to see what are the gaps. And then the good thing is that we work with you to, rectify if there are some gaps until that accreditation is given. Even when you are giving the accreditation, that doesn't end there. There is that continual engagement to ensure that we keep on improving. And so, but it is not too stringent. So those of us who have schools and want to, run the Cambridge, system, don't worry, it's not too stringent. The good thing is that we do a lot of co-creation.
Okay.
Right, and so there are people around who would help you, work with you, even when you are not ready. We develop a timeline, work with you, build your capacity, ensure that you have the system in place until when you are there, and then accreditation is given. But
Okay.
even when accreditation is given, right, we continue to engage and continue to see how we can improve upon it. Okay, so co-creation is key.
Okay, thank you. Now, still on the checkpoint. Okay. Knowing what we know now and hearing from all our panelists, we know that some of these neurodevelopmental disorders, and I'm using disorder just as a term of the DSM, require more than just extra time to write their checkpoint assessment. And this is where the checkpoint came in the first place. How is the British Council considering accommodating students during their checkpoint exams? And I'm sure all of the school privates, we're also listening, me in particular. So please.
So we are not in a rush. We understand that every individual have different needs, and
Yes.
And so we are very much open to conversation. Now, most often you agree with that the process is that the kids are normally with the schools, and we only come in as and when we need to do the assessment and then do the checkpoint. So usually when the school is able to have a conversation with us, ahead of time, we are able to understand and work with the school, no matter how long it will take for the young person to just get it. And so usually we are not in a rush. We are happy to work along, and we are open to conversation. Let us know, let us work together so that we leave no one behind.
Okay, good. So right now you offer 25% of the time for checkpoint, right? 25% for me, if a child is dyslexic, I don't know what 25% can do extra time for them to finish their exam. If a child is autistic, I don't know what 25% of extra time would do for that child. But I like what you said in terms of we are open to discussion to open up that arena of what would it take for this child not to be left behind. So if I need a note taker or someone that will read to me during the exam, you are open to that conversation. And I'm glad that this is being broadcast live, so we'll hold that. I will hold this coming from you. So thank you for that. And I hope that this discussion, especially when it comes to Cambridge, that is flooding in our private schools in Ghana, we need to rethink. And I guess this is where you say we're open to that conversation. It means we are rethinking what inclusivity means within the Cambridge curriculum. So thank you for that. So now I move to Mr. Amankwa. Mr. Alex Mankwa. Oh, good afternoon. This is our last panel. You currently serve as the unit head of learning disabilities at the Ghana Education Services headquarters, Special Education Division. Am I right? Thank you. So knowing the current cries of our teacher for the lack of TLM, teaching learning material, and I'll give you an example. One of the things that a parent said as a panel, saying that she used matches as counters. Creativity as a parent. But we have our teachers crying for TLM. Oh, government is not doing this. Government is not doing that. With specific learning disabilities, they don't know. So, Mr. Amankwa, to begin my question with you, I would like to delve into the learning difficulties that your unit focuses on. Can you provide us a context to the specific learning disabilities that your unit work on or work with?
Thank you very much. We are rethinking inclusivity.
I like that. I love it.
So I would even start from here. Once upon a time when Paul of Tarsus went to Athens and he thought inclusivity, he saw an inscription to an unknown God, and that's what he used. And so I visited British Council, and I wanted to use the washroom, and I saw the inscriptions, male, female, disabled. Disabled. What is that? Rethinking inclusivity. I was confused. So I was asking, if my sister Rosalind has to use the washroom, she's dyslexic in the bracket of disabilities, she's female, disabled, where does she go?
British Council.
And I was even wondering, disabled, was it a door disabled or what? So even here, we need to rethink inclusivity.
Miss Agnes. Thank you.
Ghana Education Service, Special Education Division, over the years has operated, as we all know, with a conventional setting of special education, where we had the unit for the blind, unit for the deaf, unit for the intellectual and developmental disabilities, and then initially IE had not come in, inclusive education had not come in, but later when it came in, they had unit for inclusive education, so 4 units. What it means is that any other form of disability was marginalized. And then when issues started coming in with this form of dyslexia and dyscalculia and the likes, then we needed to get a unit for learning disabilities. And that came in just a few years ago, I think 2018, thereabout. So from that time on, what we needed to do from Special Education Division is to overhaul the teaching fraternity, because for several years, we've trained our teachers and they've already set to teach for years without inclusion and without the knowledge of learning disabilities. Some of them had some knowledge about it, very basic, and is the introductory part. Few months ago, I had opportunity to dialogue with some people who are concerned about teacher training in Ghana, and going back to look at the curriculum, the syllabus, what do we have in there when it comes to learning disabilities? So still we'll churn out teachers and they will still not have the opportunity to be able to raise these children very well. So special education, learning disabilities units, our mandate is to go back and reorient the teachers. Whilst they're teaching, we'll still come back and said, okay, this is new, but we need to inculcate it because it's very important. These children have been in the mainstream environment all these years. And this time we need to do something to salvage them. So we've seen some of the partners who have come and organizations to support us, especially UNICEF. Done a lot of programs with UNICEF, piloting it around, and they are championing the cause of universal design for learning. So we've been to a number of the districts, I think around this time, about 28 or 26, 28, thereabout, and we're moving on. Time after time, we'll have to go and educate the teachers, get them trained so that they would also cascade it to the downstream so it can work better. So my units, we're doing district trainings for the teachers. We've moved from one district to the other. And so far, I think we've been able to engage over 10,000 teachers across the country, and we're still doing. Now, talking about dyslexia and the other forms of learning disabilities, we have various. Even with dyslexia alone, we have about 18 types. Dysgraphia, we have about 8 types. Dyscalculia, we have about 13 types. So which one are you targeting to teach the child? And if you bring the teachers together to train them, on what are you training them? Is it dyscalculia or dysgraphia or this? So what the design we had was this. Let's start with awareness and advocacy. So when they become aware of the challenge, now they would advocate for the children so the children are able to advocate for themselves. Then the next level is, after I have been aware of the challenge, how do I, particularly as a teacher, be able to identify, at least at the basic level? If I'm able to identify, how do I refer unless I do informal assessment of the child? So the next level that we've got into that we're doing now is the informal assessment level, where teachers would have a checklist of the risk factors, and just by observation, they'll be able to tick the risk factors. We put it together, we evaluate it, then we can write an informal report for referrals and recommendations. We have the National Assessment Center where we could do the referrals. The team there cannot go to all the regions. So we are looking out for a way that we'll be able to manage that also, so that when assessment is done, we can rightly give them the necessary interventions. Because without the assessment to know the particular challenge, you will teach a child who can sound worse but has difficulty with letters, which is a form of dyslexia. And then you have to teach the child in a different dimension, it wouldn't work. So with the assessment done, we can create the specific interventions for the children. So that is what special education we're doing now.
Thank you. I like the target back to British Council. Yeah, very slick. So I came from a system where inclusive education or inclusive classroom requires that a teaching assistant is also present to support the main teacher, right? So it's easier to manage, right? But unfortunately, we are in Ghana where teachers have sometimes more than 50 students, and it's just one teacher managing. So unfortunately, we can't always put the blame on the teachers. I teach as well at the University of Ghana, where I have sometimes teacher education students, upward to almost 1,000, teaching inclusive education. Theory, obviously, but the practical side of it is missing. But some things that I do is I bring in my frontliners, the Rosalinds, all those doing the work, to come and talk to my class regarding what to do when this is happening, but it's still not enough. So it's difficult, and I'm glad that you brought to the point that the teachers already in the field, you do go around and then train them on some of these things, hands-on, practical, and that's what unfortunately we're missing within the institutions, universities, college, and all that. So my question to you next, and I'm a Pan-Africanist, so when it comes to materials that is localized is what I always talk about in my classroom. So could you provide insights into the integration of locally crafted intervention materials to meet the evolving needs of the diverse learners in Ghana? I am interested in understanding how inclusion is managed, particularly in classroom, as I already mentioned, with over 50 or more children in some of our classes, where teachers are supporting multiple children with learning disability or learning needs or different diverse learners, I should say, because I'm a visual learner and I have to be, you can't just start teaching me theory for me to get it. I need to see. So that's who I am. Without the needed TLMs nor a trained teaching assistant, how are we teaching teachers to do this? And please touch on some of the localized learning materials that we've used. Like our parents said, we've used matches to do counters. Please tell us.
Thank you very much. We're talking about teaching and learning materials or resources. But the one that I'll basically talk about is when we look at inclusive pedagogies. The best teaching and learning material that we could have is the teacher's creativity. The teacher's creativity. If I talk about counters, I talk about this. You use the counters for this person, would it work? That is the question. And I need to do some reflective practice, go think about it again to come and use another thing. Time is moving on. So what strategy should I generate to be able to support them? Every teacher is creative. And so when we talk under inclusion, we have inclusive pedagogies should be developed by the teachers. Localizing the materials, good. Adapting materials, good. Adopting the ones that could replace the local ones, fine. If it could work, that's fine. I remember a story about a teacher who was teaching greater than, less than. And he has to use illustrations, and you know normally we do this, and some of the children were not getting it, others got it, so he separated the class. You be here, American segregation, you go here. And so at a point he had to devise another strategy. And then the next strategy he has to use the knee because he turns the knee this way and that way, and still they were not getting it. Then the next thing he had to do is to use the waist, because when you bend like this waist is greater than here, is less than. Still, they were not getting it and said, oh, my bone, blockheaded, I can't do anything any longer. Later, a different teacher came in, and this teacher was moved to a different classroom, not because of that issue. When the teacher asked this first teacher, why have you divided them into two, put it, they said, oh, you're really going to struggle. Even greater than, less than concept, they couldn't get it. So for this ones, this new teacher went back home thinking about it, what can I do? The following day, he came to the classroom holding something in his hand, and he threw it into the air. And all the children were eager, watching it. You know, with UDL, we have multiple means of engagement. So he started engaging them. So what do I have in my hand? What have I thrown into the air? And they all said, fish, fish, fish. He caught it. What do we do with fish? We eat, we bite. Everybody, including Wabong, they were also responding. What type of fish is this? Apata, amani, herring, this, that. Oh, everybody's getting involved. Then he went to the board and drew the fish on the board. The mouth here, the tail here. And let's get our imagination right. What is the shape of the fish? Is it not greater than, less than? The creative teacher has come. He wrote numbers on the board. He said, you know something? This fish, anytime he sees bigger numbers, he will swallow them. All of us, let's swallow, and then, And when he sees smaller numbers, he will whack it with the tail. Class 10, let's whack. When they do it, they will, and they all did. Then she asked, 8 and 4, which one will he swallow? And then Abonye, say. The 8, and which one will he whack with his tail? The 4. Oh, inclusive pedagogy comes from creativity.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. My goodness. You actually got me going. So don't. So my last question to you, I think it goes back to also some of the panel saying that, they would love to engage with GES, but it lacks the inclusion. So how does your unit collaborate with the community to ensure that no child is left behind, no matter the economic status of the parents and learning difficulties of the child? And in this question also, let's address how can we get involved with the private schools so that some of them can also start to run some of our curriculum. Because if I had a teacher like you in math, or like the person that you just spoke about, maybe I would have gone into some STEM program, and not just teaching theory. But it's all good. Someone needs to do something. So please, answer my last question.
Thank you very much. Come 2024, we have a lot of engagements to do.
Sorry, go ahead.
Saying that come 2024, we have a lot of engagements to do. From Special Education Division, we always collaborate with the policy making body, our mother, Ministry of Education. And earlier we had some conferences that we spoke about this issue. With regards to private involvement in the private schools, there is a need to engage with NASIA. And we've had our earlier dialogue. We're going to continue from there. For all this, UNICEF has been giving us a lot of support in these areas. When you look at My First Day at School, they are involved in that. The ages that the children will have to come to school, and we have, or in all the districts, we have special education coordinators, and they go around, they check, even with mothers who don't understand and don't know the age at which a child should go to school or a child should be assessed. These ones will come with a report. They will go and visit them and come with a report, and then they will make a follow-up, observe. Due that age, the child is brought to the school. And My First Day at School, they do that assessment also. Unfortunately, we have not had so much engagement of learning disabilities in My First Day at School. So the plan is to do that at this time also, add it on with a checklist, a very basic checklist, so we can have all of them coming into the school. So we are open to have a lot of engagement with the private schools and the private sector. And I think things are going to go so well, especially tying in with the new curriculum, which has a lot of issues that we can discuss together to fine tune it. And then the review also of the inclusive education policy. Yes, so that is what we are aiming to do now.
Thank you so much. See, it wasn't that bad. Yes, please. I want to say thank you. If we try to tie in everything everyone is saying, you cannot rethink inclusivity without a system. You need the system. You need everyone to be involved. Like Dr. Fatima said, you need our teachers to be involved. And I also push we need the parents to also be involved in this conversation of rethinking inclusivity because they know better. They know their children. They spend, 24 hours, as one of our parents said, with the parents. So please, it is a stakeholder engagement, and we are all stakeholders. Moving forward, let's all sit on the table together. If you can't sit at the table, create your own. And let's be radical about creating and making sure that no child is left behind. Thank you again.
Hello, everyone. So we are in the Q&A session now. And I took the microphone because I have a question for your panel.
Okay.
As you are discussing rethinking inclusivity in education, addressing the needs of the dyslexic students, what should we over here and also the Ministry of Education take away from this conversation? What are some of the things that we are putting, the actionable things that we are putting out there that from this conversation we are going to try to do for schools, because we have head of schools and directors of schools here, we have owners of schools here. And so also, what should or what do we recommend for the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education Service, and even for UNICEF to be looking at? This is for me what I want to hear. I want something that next year when we come back, we can say that, okay, through what we heard, these are the changes we started seeing. So any of your members can answer that question.
Honestly, from everything I've heard today and I've been listening, and something I have to share here that bothers me when we talk about dyslexia as being a disability. It's not. It's not. Learning disabilities is not even a word we should be using. There shouldn't be a unit called for learning disabilities. People learn in a very different way. We go back, the word being used is neurodiverse. I think the problem is not the children, the people, it's the system. So how are we going to rethink a system that acknowledges that and that does not call it a disability, but calls it, and then, sorry. And also, even in the second panel, there was a lot of things that a bit triggered me about, what we need to do to make our kids survive just the way it is, just to survive the system. Add these teachers, make their brain memorize faster. But why are we making them memorize faster? My question, for what? Why should their brain memorize faster? Is it the purpose of education that we just memorize, chew, and pour knowledge? This is my question. What's the purpose of education for the Ghana Education Services? Is it for we develop these change makers of the future that will solve our problems? Chew and pour exams will not be the solution for that. It's not. The Bloom.
Can I throw a little more light on
that we talk about? I'll just finish this point. The Bloom taxonomy that we talk about, the lowest level of intellectual capacity is the memorization and chewing and pour. That's the lowest. So we're actually focusing so much on making you do the lowest kind of intellectual work while understanding, analyzing, putting it into creation and designing. Focusing with our schools that our students learn about this math concept and get to the point where they are designing a solution to a problem they have in the community. So is this kind of assessment that we want to do, or a paper and pen exam that I give you 20 minutes to complete that's going to prove to me that you're going to be the future change maker that this country needs? So really, for me, we've got to stop doing this. We've got to stop keeping the system as is and just adding, and just becoming everything becomes so heavy. Even for us, I can tell you honestly, even as a school, we've been talking about it for 2 years now. We're saying like the things we just added is making things so heavy that we need to just break things down completely and rebuild it to say, you know what, for what we envision education, and the purpose of education and what kind of graduates and what kind of, students we want to coming out of our school, we've got to break this whole system down and build it all over again. So this is where, honestly, I think we need to think about that.
And just to add on Dr. Fatima's comment and Rosalind's question, I think, when it comes to theory, we're talking about decolonization is what, So when we're decolonizing, I think it depends, and we need to be very conscious about who is sitting at the table. Right now, you have all professionals sitting at a table, and we're asking, how do we start to rethink? As someone who might not be, well, I'm not officially diagnosed, maybe I am, a dyslexic person, but I knew later in life how I'm supposed to learn. If you ask me a question like this, it becomes more of a system way, or I will give you a question that is more theoretical, more system and all that. But if you ask a dyslexic student, right, someone who has gone through the system, like Rosalind, understand what it means to be dyslexic in an education system that never worked. Bring in the parents and ask, what should we do as education, as ministry, as private schools, as public school? Sitting on the table in front of you, what can we do? Please lead us. That is how you decolonize a system. We cannot decolonize when someone that does not have the lived experience to walk us through what it's going to look like. Because once we build it, you might need to break it all over again and do it because it's not working for Johnny, or it's not working for Amma, or it's not working for Arama. So how can Arama come to us and say, no, this is how I think, and this is how my teacher needs to teach me? I want Abuna to come to me and say, no, doc, this is how I learn. Maybe if you do it this way, this is this type of assignment that I want to be able to do. That is how we decolonize. You break it apart, as Doc said, and then you bring them together. And then, just like Lego, my kids love Lego, so I always use Lego as an example. You start to build it. And yeah, Juma, we're breaking it down. Now I start to build. What I said is just, you build it. If it doesn't work, you break it down, and you build it all over again. That is what stakeholder means. So for next time, for me, I would love to see student panels that are dyslexic tell us what we have done wrong. I remember the first time I brought Rosalind to my classroom. And after she left, the next class, I think they have interim assessment. All my students, all of a sudden, think they were dyslexic. I said, oh, doc, the interim assessment, please, I'm dyslexic. Can you reduce? Can you do this? Can you do? Right? But for me, it's more of the awareness for them that they are different learners. And we don't have to necessarily put a label to it. It just means I learn differently from the way you teach. If you stand in front of me and just start talking theory this, child development this, and Kobe it's not going nowhere. But if you start to apply it, draw, write, do something, then it works. So teachers, as Mr. Amankwa said, you need to be a creative educator. What is wrong with you not knowing? And I always tell my students that I'm a learner and I'm your teacher or your lecturer for the year. But yes, I also want to learn from you. So how do we create that co-learning space where we are learning from you? I'm learning from your parents. I'm learning from your experience. And then I can be that better teacher for you. So that's what I'll say in terms of decolonization and making sure that we move from just talking about it to actually the practical of it. Let's see, let's show, let me come to your school and see that you're actually doing something. And we have kids here, so but you're actually doing something. Yes. Please go ahead.
Just to add to what Dr. Fatima said in relation to Rosalind's question, I would say that with regard to how we assess, that should be something that is tabled for discussion, because typically we are not assessing children's knowledge, of content or skills, right? What exams are doing is assessing children's memory, or they're assessing children's ability to write quickly within a certain space of time. Now, what technology allows us to do is to create a more level playing field, whereby we harness technology to write for the child who struggles to write, spell for the child who struggles to spell, read for the child who struggles to read, in which case they have the chance of actually conveying what they know. But at the moment, the system that we have doesn't create that level playing field. So we are actually, even at the university level, what we're actually doing is favoring those who are good at memorization. The other thing is that the very first panel was creativity, the dyslexia, the creative mind of a dyslexic. And I just want to say that our education system doesn't foster creativity. It fosters convergent thinking. So everybody must think the same. There is only one right answer. I think your MC said at the beginning that he had to do 6 hours of punishment because he came up with a solution in a different way to the teacher. Now, in Western countries, he would be praised. He would be celebrated. They would be not just looking to give him a score for getting the right answer, but actually giving him a score for the process that he went through, okay, in order to reach that answer. So it's not just about the end result. It's that process. And once you start fostering, recognition for the process, that can be transferred to so many different areas, and it promotes divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is synonymous with creativity, and that's a fundamental issue that we have in our current education system. So let's relook at that. The second thing I just want to say is in relation to, we talked about, really nice, fluffy things, inclusion, everyone feeling loved. But the fact is, our society needs literate people. You can't, in the current system, get on in life unless you have a degree of skill in reading, writing, and maths. And we need to establish what that level is. So currently, we have 4 levels of literacy. We have functional literacy, we have basic literacy, we have proficient literacy, and we have advanced literacy, right? So functional literacy, I mentioned it before, is just really, really basic, being able to read signs, right? And it goes up to about a grade 4 level, 7 or 8-year-old level. In order to reasonably succeed in school, you need at least basic literacy. In order to go to a higher level, maybe first degree proficient. To really go beyond that, to be reading, philosophy and so on, you really need advanced level literacy. If more than 20% of our population isn't even achieving functional literacy, then we have a problem, because we are not really developing the population here. We're not able to develop the country because we're not harnessing all the minds here. So when we talk about dyslexia, when we talk about what we're trying to achieve, let's also think about the level of literacy that looks like. Thank you very much.
Yes. Madam Fatima. Let me make this comment briefly. Ghana's education is at a crossroad, but this crossroad is for the better. Anybody who holds the document, the new standard-based curriculum, you go through, you would understand that Ghana is moving ahead into the areas where we would have the three strands of literacy balanced. We'll have the academic literacy, social literacy, emotional literacy, all embedded in that document. The major components of the new curriculum is bringing us equality and equity. Under equality, we will see skills and competencies, which all the children, with or without disability, must have. Expected learning domains, where we're talking about the process skills and all that, all these were analyzing and comparing and all that, all these ones all must have. And then we have the third one as values and attitudes under that. So all these ones, you can't say, oh yes, I'm dyslexic, so I shouldn't respect. No, values and attitudes, you must. So it's there in the new curriculum. But when you come to that of equity, that's where we have inclusion with inclusive pedagogies. Then we have scaffolding. I would say, you are here, we would allow you to build up little by little and come. Then we have differentiation. So you have been able to get the concept, you haven't got it, we need to use a different strategy to manage you. And currently, differentiated learning is on the increase. When you look at the number of teachers who are getting on the platforms of NTC to learn all these things. So we are making a headway. But the major point is that we have been going to this direction. And now they say, let's turn and go to this direction. Is there not going to be a collision? No Obama, nothing like that. So we are at a crossroad for the better. And we need all the stakeholders that are coming in. Rosalind and I, she's been coming to the office, we've been talking a lot. And what we have intended doing now, when I talked about the informal assessment for the teaching for the teachers so that they will do for the children, she's involved. And we are going to now go into the training of the teachers with ADO and other stakeholders that may come in. And again, when it comes to assessment, we look at the new dynamics that are coming. CCP, the Common Core Curriculum that we have for that program at the SHS level, we're saying that all of them get to that level SHS, and then they create the diversity when they are going to the second year, where we see that for you, your strength is in this area, so go here. Your strength is that area. So all these dynamics are coming in slowly, and eventually we'll be able to map up really well. But it is grinding slowly, and we understand. That's the system we are in now.
Thank you.
Let me quickly add to what Mr. Mangwa had said. I must say that a British Council has been part of the journey, working with the ministry in developing the Common Core. And we, as consultants, have had a closer look at that document. And trust me, it is one of the best compared to what we have seen in other African countries, right? The problem, as you had said, is about the implementation on the ground, right? And that is where the British Council's Connecting Classroom came in. That's why the focus, initially, when the program started, it was focusing more on the students, right? Which includes exchanges, right? But with the Common Core, the program was redesigned, right, to focus more on building the capacity of teachers. And you agree with me that since time memorial, look at the number of teachers we had already churned out into the system. And so the growth in terms of change in the pedagogic approaches in the schools may go very slowly, but a lot is being done. And that is why, as British Council, our doors are always open to share with any institution, what are the models of the capacity building program, the course, the course on the Connecting Classroom. We are more than happy to share with you. We are more than happy to work with you. Beyond the training, I do remember council assembling a number of the consultants, not just me, and we went to the ground. Right after the training, you are supposed to go back to your school and go and deliver in 6 months. And within that 6 months, we had to go to the classroom, sit in the classroom as students to observe how the teacher is even delivering in the classroom, right? And it was quite a very good exercise that brought a lot of rethinking on how our teachers are delivering in the classroom. So we need to do more, and we need to create a platform to have this conversation. But I do agree that maybe you should have some students, on the panel telling us what we are doing right and what we are not doing right going forward, and suggesting solutions.
And to add that, since we are also utilizing online access, we're just collecting data right now and noticing that a lot of researchers coming to Ghana or that are talking within the landscape that we're talking about, inclusion, dyslexia, and everything, are foreign tourist researchers, right? So they give suggestions on policy suggestion, this should happen, but the local researchers, right? The local people doing the work, the parents, the Rosalinds, and all the other people sitting on this panel, it's difficult to get funding. And for us to actually go down to the frontline folks to understand exactly what is happening in our schools. And with this is where we can actually say that I know what is happening in GES, and this is some policy suggestions. I know what is happening in RRN. This is some policy suggestions that we can use to move forward. So funders such as UNICEF, WHO, whoever is funding and whoever is listening to us today, it says stakeholders. You are part of the stakeholders. Don't bring any tourist researcher to come research us for 2 weeks and go and then give you suggestions. No. Give us the funding to do the research so we can actually give you and call our governments and say, this is what you're not doing, and this is what we need to do going forward. Please. And thank you. There's a hand at the back.
Can I say something quickly?
Okay.
I'm sitting here, I'm listening to all the conversation, and I want to make a quick, point. Nobody is coming anywhere to come give us money to do anything. Get it? Like, no one is coming to help us to solve our problems. It's not going to come from any foreigners. It's going to come right here from Ghana. So we kind of have to start thinking about looking around us and figure out, like, how do we generate the necessary level of income ourselves to solve this problem? If you want to wait for other people to come, it's just not going to happen. The truth of the matter is, when you're trying to solve a problem at scale, like how the Ghana Education Service is trying to do, it is really, really difficult. Because one issue that you can solve in one school, 2 schools, 3 schools, 1 district, once you start moving into multiple schools, like 50, 100, 200, 300, different demographic, different languages, different cultures, everything shifts. It's just not the same. So sometimes you can find a solution which works really well in one school, but it's not scalable. So you kind of have to find a way of also scaling it. When it comes to resources, this is what is happening. The average cost per student in this country spent by the government is roughly around $350 a year. The average cost per student that the United States spends on a student is more than $25,000. Have you seen the disparity within the resources? One has so little resource to go for so many kids. One has so much resources to go for all its students. And this is another fact. In rich countries, every student has to have every person, the average person has to have at least 16 years of education. That's the average to remain a rich country. Once you fall below that, you are middle or you're a poor country. The richest Ghanaians, top 20, have an average of 9 years of education. Poorest 20% have 3 years of education. As a country, we kind of have to start figuring how do we move from 9 years to 12 years and ultimately to 16 years so we can get out of the poverty, index. I'm saying this again. If we really want to solve Ghana's problem, Get the best and brightest young people. Tell them what a problem is. Give them the resources and get out of their way and see what happens in 10 years.
Beautiful. So we have a couple of minutes. We have a question at the back and
Hello everyone. My name is Sasha. I'm a researcher and I'm glad to be here. Super interesting conversations. I have two questions. My first question is, how financially inclusive is inclusive education? I have a sister who is 17-year-old and we've been looking for schools for her for maybe 7 years now. You would go to a school that is financially inclusive for your pockets, but when the standards are not up to what you are looking for, and the ones that are up to what you are looking for are not within your budgets. So it's like everything is beyond your reach, and it's very frustrating. We're having a lot of conversations about these topics, but you cannot access it without the finances. So how financially inclusive is this inclusive education? My second question is, I see that there are lots of conversations around early interventions, and when I'm looking for schools, I see a lot of schools around early interventions for students. But for young adults who are like 18 and above, what are the interventions for them? Because my sister is hitting 18 and I'm really wondering, how am I going to support her? Because all the interventions are being catered to the younger kids, which is really right, but then what about the young adults as well? Thank you.
economics. Multi-kids. Short and sweet, please.
Thank you. Thank you. One thing is that Inclusion Plus is expensive because when you are properly dealing with an issue like dyslexia, as I said, it's multifaceted. It's not just about reading and writing. One of the panelists said that around 40% of dyslexics have comorbid conditions, so maybe ADHD, dyspraxia, other issues. So if you're going to really address it, you need multiple professionals, and that comes at a cost. However, in order to enable more children to get access to quality input, we are investing and supporting education, teacher training, continuing professional development, so that teachers can come, benefit from our expertise, and then go out and spread that in their communities. At Multi-Kids, we've done projects with the Department for International Development in the UK around access for children with cerebral palsy in government schools. So we train teachers in every region of Ghana in order to disseminate that practice. And we are doing other projects of a similar nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've experienced it for so many years, trying to make it cheaper. In a sense, an inclusive community means we all take care of each other. And that's why the only way it can become financially feasible is scalability and government. When government takes it over and creates a system that has all the key people and programs in place. But for private schools, I can tell you from my 12 years of experience, it just keeps getting more and more expensive to be adding all these professionals and creating that multidisciplinary team, because you need a multidisciplinary team to be able to hit everything and ensure that you're providing the right interventions and support that is needed for every student. We haven't even started with mental health and emotional well-being and psychological support. So all of that, if you really want what we call a holistic program in place, it becomes very expensive if you are developing at a small scale. But possibly if you develop, you scale it bigger, and with right programs in place and saying these are the skills, these are the experts I want to place in the different region. For me, what I've learned is that governments and policy needs to understand that that aspect of personalization, it cannot be one for all. Even the new curriculum, 20 of my staff were involved in the revision of the curriculum. And when I was looking at it, I was like, oh my God, this curriculum can work with students in major cities in Ghana. But I was thinking of rural children and the problems we have in the different regions. Does one curriculum solve the problems that we have that are so diverse and so multifaceted? So that's the aspect of centralization and decentralization. These are huge discussions, basically, to have at the government level. And it is important we have them there. It is important we have them there. It's more important, as you said, the people who have been doing, and there's a lot of school and organizations are doing wonderful work. And as you said, I used to work for UNICEF before, by the way, and what we used to have is these networks of stakeholders that we always met to understand what was happening on the ground, and then let's pull this and see how we can benefit from it. So I don't know if these networks actually exist here in Ghana, because since I've been mainly involved in ARIS, but I believe the same thing that Rosalind has created here, that kind of meeting of people who are working on this in so much different ways, for us to come together and put our ideas and say, then how can we scale it? How can we make it? Because using Daniel's teachers who are already placed in these regions, maybe some of our schools, multi-kids can be involved in doing the training. So there's so much skills and capabilities. It's very much about bringing it all together, and somebody's got to do it.
Exactly.
Somebody's got to do it, and that's why I adore Rosalind, because she's put herself out there to start that movement. So thank you so much, Rosalind, and I hope from there we'll be able to develop more financially, feasible solutions. But at this point, no, it's very hard.
And I think to top that up, I think we need to go beyond just educators now. I think in one of the conferences I was sitting in as well, they talk about teachers sitting at home not having anything to do. Is it possible that we move into community health, where we start to train some of these folks on how to now support those who are at that level where they can't support all cats, training with what Don said, and said, okay, are we teaching teachers who cannot have access to employment, rather than having them take British Council, but rather than having them come take exam on English, why can't we just train them on what the way Multikids is doing, and then have them just do the support within the community? Ministry of Health already has a system like that. Can we scale it up? Can we come together just outside of just this education realm that we are in today, and then also bring in other stakeholders to say, let's do it, not just within the classroom, but also within the community. I think it requires, again, our students as well, but also this panel, Rosalind, to direct us on how to go about it, right? So I think there are more folks that need to sit on the table for us to move to the next step. So I think for next conference or forum, we need to have those pockets of forum to start having this discussion. Before we get there, is it possible for us to start doing feasibility studies on how to even get to that point? Can we start using students, some of my 1,000 students in one class, maybe? Some of their assignment could be geared towards that, to say, okay, can you look within this community and see what it is that they need? How can we support them? Is it possible that we can use some of the nurses that are still waiting to be hired to do some of the work? There's so much possibility, but it requires us to actually sit. And the question again that Doc mentioned, who is there to do the work? Miss Rosalind, over to you. And thank you all.
Wow, 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 wow. If you agree with me, say wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists. Thank you to our moderator. We are now going to move into a media moment. So if you could please stand forward so that our photographers can catch your lovely photographs for us so we can capture this moment forever and ever and ever and ever. Amazing. Could I please have some help with the podium? It would be amazing to please have some help to get the podium back up onto the stage. Thank you so, so much. So, right. How's everyone feeling? No, I need some energy. How's everyone feeling? Stand up a second. Let me see if you're really feeling cool. Stand up. Let me see your faces. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up. I want to see you. I want to see your cool faces. Yeah, I agree. Everyone do a little shakedown. Shake, shake, shake. Come on, I can't see your shimmies. Me, I'm trapped in this dress, so the only thing I can do is shimmy. Right? Clap. Clap for yourselves. Big tears. Oh, I love that idea. We should all clap in sign language. I love that no one needed a lesson. Another big clap. Ah, someone cheated. You see, you are not concentrating. Thank you. Thank you. I love that idea. Next time you can co-host with me, okay? Oh, you have been co-hosting with me. Amazing. All right, so everyone, if you could please take a seat. Up next. Up next, we are going to be having our closing remarks by our chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for your patience. I know we've run over time, but to see that you're still here is much appreciated. So as we bring today to a close, I'm filled with a great sense of pride, gratitude, and optimism. The wealth of the lived experiences here in the room today have been both enlightening and inspiring. It's also clear from what has been shared today that we all have some work to do in order to build collective dedication to addressing the challenges faced by individuals with dyslexia. And today, you also probably witnessed the tension about two competing ideas. Do we prepare our neurodivergent learners for the world as it is? Or do we break the system and rebuild it by imagining a world as it could be? And I hope that these questions will continue to percolate in your mind and that you'll hold what you've heard here closely as we all work together to chart a path forward. Could you help me extend our warm appreciation to all the moderators, the panelists, and speakers today? I think each of them has brought so much. Each panel has brought so much to the conversation, and I feel personally enriched and hope that you also feel better equipped to take on the task of loving and supporting people who have or are affected by dyslexia. It was also great that the government of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service, was here. As you could tell, especially from this last panel, they have a key role to play to set the right policies and to embed inclusion in how we educate future leaders and future citizens of Ghana. So each of us, whether we're policymakers, educators, parents, or just concerned citizens, we have a role to play in dispelling the stigma that's associated with dyslexia. I personally loved the idea of having students on the stage, so hopefully next year we'll see that, so that we hear directly from young people what exactly they're experiencing. I also could empathize with the question from the audience about cost. So the question of how do we make dyslexia support accessible, especially in resource-constrained environments? So there's a lot of work to do as we leave the forum today. The connections that we formed, hopefully, and the knowledge that we've gained, I hope that you will take to create a more inclusive future for us all. So thank you again for all of your valuable contributions. I look forward to seeing more positive impacts on in this realm, not just for dyslexia, but neurodivergency in general. So may God bless each of you for coming, and may God bless the Africa Dyslexia Organization, and may this forum continue to grow from strength to strength in Jesus' name. Amen.
All too soon. Dyslexia Education Stakeholders Forum 2023 is almost over, but we are not done. There is a lot of work to be done. For the directors of education here, especially those from private schools, I just want to urge you that do not wait for government to do anything for you to start acting. You have the open floor to do what you like. And if you start training your teachers to be able to support all learners in your schools, it will go a very long way for you. And so that's what I would encourage. Get in touch with us if you are interested in our trainings. We have a lot of training coming up from March of 2024. So get in touch, get our number or our email us and show your interest. Also encourage anyone in this room that you have connections to support the Africa Dyslexia Organization. Please be open to support us, a lot of our initiatives. Next year, Dyslexia Education Stakeholders Forum will happen on the 30th of October, 2024. We're looking for supporters, we're looking for sponsorships. So if you're here and you know somebody, please reach out to me and I'll come speak to them. Next year, our students will have a workshop for you as part of the forum. We would also have a panel. I love that. I don't know who brought that. Dr. Kisi will have student panel, but because I feel like Pat here has a lot of stuff to say, but he didn't get the opportunity. So I want to say a big thank you to our esteemed speakers and moderators. You've done an awesome job, but none of them were paid, but they spent all their time here today with us. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for parents. Keep holding the front to your child. Your child is going to surprise you very, very soon. Trust me, they are going to surprise you. Thank you to British Council for being part of us. We hope you continue to support us in all other initiatives as well. Thank you to UNICEF, UN, UNESCO, World Vision, directors of all schools that were here, head teachers, we have a teacher travel all the way from Brona-Hafu to come to the forum. We have a teacher travel all the way from Kumasi, Yonso to come. We have a teacher who came all the way from Ada to come. This shows how committed people are. With little resources, she was the best teacher in Ghana before. We had the first runner-up for this year in the hall here. And it just showed that they have nothing, no resources, but they are putting their best. And these are the teachers we want to support. So be part of us. We thank parents, we can thank our students, we thank our media team, we thank Africa Dyslexia team, the British Council team. I'm sorry if I haven't said thank you, but thank you to all for coming. And remember, 30th of October, this room may be small for us because I saw people standing today, and this seat here, 250, some were added to it. So maybe we should be looking at the International Conference Center for next year. Can we do it? Okay, so then go and pool your resources and bring it so that we can make it happen, okay? Thank you all and have a good evening. Safe home wherever you came from. Thank you for being part of us.
Thank you. Before you get up, no. As they say in Nigeria, why are you running? Why are you running? There is one amazing thing that we're going to need for you to do, and that is pick up your phones, point them at the QR code. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there, depending on where you're looking. Please open up the QR code pagey thingy and fill out the survey for us. So, I mean, I think you've all attempted to put on events before, or at least know someone who has tried. I think you all will agree it would be impossible to do what we did without any support, any funding, right? And all those people need us to tell them how it went. Because I heard someone say International Conference Center. I don't think they'll be giving us that if we cannot explain to them how we did today. So please do take the time to fill out the survey and make sure that we are able to report back to our funders, to our partners, to our supporters about actually if this event was of value to you or anyone else. I would really appreciate it. So I hope you've got that QR code, whether you take a picture of it or scan it and figure out how to open that up. And if there's anyone that came with you today that has already left for whatever reason that you know would like to offer that feedback for us and offer us that support, please do share it with them, all right? Now, secondly, we have a gift for you on completion of your survey in the shape of food. Food. So, of course, you know, we ran over in our coffee break. It was supposed to be 10 minutes, turned to an hour and a bit. So therefore, we have made sure that the food is still here for you. So you all have packed lunches. And of course, the tables and chairs are still out there in the event that you'd actually like to sit down, socialize, network, and talk to each other. Or of course, you can pick it up and leave, all right? So on behalf of, I guess, yourselves and everyone else here, I'd like to say a very, very big thank you for joining us today, for spending your time, for dedicating yourselves. And we all look forward to seeing how much the space in terms of support for dyslexic people in Ghana and across the continent, and even hopefully more the world, grows thanks to the role that you're about to play. So thank you all very much. Please clap for yourselves as you leave. Clap, clap, clap. Thank you. Thank you.